understand. I mean, listen, I understand that, and I wasn't speaking to, and I think a lot of people misunderstand when I speak about that.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not speaking about you as a white man in front of me. I'm speaking on a political level. I'm speaking on a like a macro level. I'm not speaking like I'm talking about if someone's hiring me for a job.
You seen that documentary, The Family, on Netflix? It's about a religious group that has been like the national prayer meeting that's every year with the president.
Oh,
It's about all the people behind that, and like they have a very corrupt perspective of Jesus that is being pushed through. Exactly the man you're talking about, like that. I agree.
He's like a white Jesus. I mean, Jesus is from the Middle East. How
Right.
does he look like that? That just doesn't make sense. He'd be a little more olive, you know. I mean, and I understand, like, the Jesus is definitely a more palatable Jesus, and it, like, you can put it anywhere in the world. But if you go to other countries, like, they have an Asian Jesus, and they have Black Jesus, and whatever, stuff like that. And I think that Jesus would come in different forms, like, to relate to people, like, and speak the language, and so I don't know. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Comes every so often in different forms, and
To relate to people depending on what they want to see, and yeah,
absolutely. And you can only use what you know to see what you can.
People are like, that can't be, and I'm like, wait, Jesus was immaculate conception. We believe that. That's pretty magical. Why can't he just like turn different forms? It's not that crazy.
Like the white elk.
I mean, he spoke when he was what, born? Like, it's not that crazy.
Is that what?
Yeah, he spoke. Yeah. Because someone was talking shit to Mary and saying she's a whore. And then he spoke and said, no, she's not. It's immaculate conception. I'm a baby speaking to you. Like, you got to believe that. Yeah.
For the sake of variety, you guys can use classes.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
I'll take that one.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Totally counts. And then when Joseph comes back,
I'm still independent. You're the next thing I'm independent. When I like someone, I'm just like. Yeah, when you said the two-spirit stuff, I was like.
Yeah.
Because I've been researching about that a lot. It's like a new, it's part of the LGBTQ. Now it's two-spirit. We're gonna add that to the. So I was reading about it.
So yeah, because it comes from like indigenous.
Exactly.
The owl. That is the owl.
Yeah.
The owl. No. It's kind of like a panoramic view. So whenever whoever's talking, it kind of goes on.
Yeah, that's right.
So
it's like you only had like 10 feet.
no, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So yesterday I had to
The whole room is being videotaped. It doesn't matter what way you face, we will hit it. It's so cool. It's like, so it just changes the way you can do everything. It makes it better. Yeah. So it's
pretty soon, like reality shows are gonna be like, it's gonna be like Ready Player One.
But yeah.
Oh, let me sing that. Yeah, Canadian.
It could be an actual reality show. So
And then you see the group watch after one, and then you come up.
for little boxes. And I remember growing up with just Super Nintendos. I couldn't imagine actually putting on a full VR suit and having to like have like 3-4 feet of space. Like, you guys would never see me again. Like, where's Will? Video games. You know what I mean?
which is fascinating though, because like I took a film history class, and the first like films ever were just like pictures of like trains and like all that, because like to them like we thought it was, you know, normal things, but to like back in those days, like when you just showed someone in the Midwest like
I was
my friend used to live like right down the street. She found like a really good deal. I don't think anybody's inventing it. There's like a studio system right down there.
Really?
That like would be perfect for like small business.
There is not a lot. When I was school in the forest area with like super literally like.
Did you know the UC?
2004.
Yeah, you do. You totally do. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I'm good on my end too.
Going back in July.
So you attended from 4 to 8? Cool.
I made it through.
You did.
It was hard. It was so much harder.
And just to be sure, the names, official names for checks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you guys go for quite a while on this one. So feel free to pick one of these topics. They all kind of tangentially are related, but don't feel that you have to point by point address every single one of them. Pragmatically speaking, how should the U.S. government combat racism? What is their role in doing that? What is the responsibility of the public versus the responsibility of the government? What, in terms of actual legislation, policy, not just well wishes, what is their responsibility in that combat? Is it possible for the United States to fully heal from the scars of slavery? If so, how? If that's already happened, when was that resolution? And then reparations, how much is that worth? And how do you pay for that in terms of, again, practically? And, or if you don't support reparations, how would you bridge the objective racial divide between the African American and white communities? So just in general, race in America on a practical, legislative, pragmatic level.
I think it's I think that, like, obviously I kind of made it clear that I have a lot of opinions about race, but I think when it comes to this racism, it's very systemic, and I think it's on such a strong level. And what we were even talking about before we started filming was we were talking about a lot of times, you know, and we both come from entertainment and brand ambassadors. When we go into a room, sometimes I'm the only person of color, and a lot of people are like, "You can't call yourself a person of color." I'm like, I am though. I'm Middle Eastern, like I have a lot that has been systemically against me, and that I've been in interviews and they've heard I'm from Iran and I've been asked to leave. There have been, and again, a lot of that stuff you can't report it. There's not a lot you can do. It's a feeling, it's an energy. Like it's hard. And I think when it comes to even the question itself is sometimes it seems like the only people that are getting credit for dealing with racism are Black people. There are indigenous people in this country. There are Asians. There is Manzanar. That was a Japanese concentration camp that a lot of people don't know about. The way that we took this country from indigenous people, the way Middle Eastern people have been treated. My mom's we've been called terrorists in the street up until a year ago. They're towel head. First of all, which is wrong. It's not even Middle Eastern people to not wear a turban. And there's a lot of mistakes that are made, and I think and again, I'm not saying that slavery is like a good thing by no stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying a lot of times what's getting credit in the industry is the Black experience and all of that. And again, that was horrible, and I don't think there's any level of reparations that can fix that. I think what is happening when you put a financial number on pain and trauma, it's basically pandering and patronizing. And again, it's a colonial man. The idea of this colonial man stepping up. For example, the reason there's tea in India is because the British brought tea and told them you're going to drink tea like this. And there's an idea. I even worked for a British company, and I was drinking tea without milk and sugar, and they said, "Oh, you're a savage." There's a lot of ideas. Oh yeah. That's last year in LA. So that, it's funny, but it's also systemic racism at its core. It's savage. That using that word kind of willy-nilly, and then there's a lot that, and a lot of people also think that when you put Obama into presidency, he was getting regular letters calling him disgusting, and Black children were still getting shot when he was president. It's not like that went away, and that people were not. I was outside my own house in West Hollywood, and I was asked to step out of my car. I was on the phone. 2 cops. They searched my car. They spoke slowly English, as if I don't speak perfect English. I've written 2 books. I'm an author. My English is great. Like, I don't need you to. And he explained the law to me and decided to search my trunk, which is completely illegal. And I'm telling him, I live across the street, and he's like, "No, you don't." And I'm like, "Look at my license plate." And he's like, "Oh, you do." It's like the way that cops treat people in this country, that's systemic racism. And when I get screened at an airport, if I shave, I don't get screened. So I know for a fact that there is a systemic thing that's going on. And I think when it comes to reparations, when people are saying, "Oh, it's so easy for you to get into college," bitch, give someone one opportunity. If that's the only opportunity this person of color is getting, you don't want them to go to school. Like, I don't really understand when people think that there is an issue with that form of reparation. When someone's getting an advantage, why is that bad? And remember, this is also for the school. They're doing this for their pamphlet. They want to look like, oh, listen, we have people of color. So it's everyone's winning in that opportunity. So I don't really see a problem with it. So I think to answer your question, like, fully is like reparations. I don't think there's a number. Like, can you give Indigenous people $3-4 billion? Because that's what you owe them. You took their land. So can you write a check for $4 billion? We'd love to see it. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I think the slavery and reparations, especially for Black people, I think that conversation should be had with Black people. They are the ones that suffered that atrocity firsthand. I mean, what you had former slaves being filmed. Like, when did the camera come out? When did recording come out? That's not that long ago. I mean, the first Black girl who attended school was Ruby Bridges, and she's in her 60s. She's not old. So, you know, when you talk about reparations, I think first and foremost, I think we need to hear it from Black people and Indigenous peoples, the people that our ancestors took the land from. You know, and I say our ancestors because I'm both European and Indigenous. So, you know, like, half of my heritage comes from people who were colonizers, and everybody always likes to say that America was founded on religious freedom, or it was founded on immigrants. It wasn't. It was founded, well, not only that, it's not that it wasn't, but it's not only that, it was also funded on the genocide of Indigenous people, and the market here was a possibility because of slavery, of enslavement of African people. And I think that slavery reparations that conversation shouldn't be among us. Our ancestors didn't directly suffer that way that Black peoples did, or the genocide of Indigenous people. Like, for example, I'm Mexican. I've suffered my own oppression here. You know, we're always told, get back to the border. My mother was undocumented for many, many years, not because she crossed the border illegally, it was because she waited 16 years in this country to get her papers. But whatever, I'm going off tangent. I think that the reparation conversation shouldn't be with us. I think we need to hear the Black people struggle, and there's nobody Black in this room. And I think that's kind of a problem because they are part of this country. They developed all of the cool things that we have here, all the cool dances, rock and roll and blues and disco and
Super filter.
Yeah, like, you know, they developed the cool styles. It's like they are so pertinent to our history. And like, I just said that America was not only founded, but like, it's a country now. What the hell am I going to do about it? Destroy it? No, I'm not. I'm going to acknowledge it. And like, they did so much for like popular culture, and it like reached the entire globe, and at the expense of first ridiculing. For example, square dancing. Many people think that comes from, like, you know, like white folk dancing. It comes from slaves. It comes from, you know, so I don't know, like, the reparation conversation shouldn't be had with us, and that's all I'm going to say. And like you said, there is no number. There's no number for that. And Grace, you said, what is the public's responsibility? You have to know where you're privileged and when you're not. That is first and foremost. You know, if you're white, you are not systematically oppressed. You know, like, nobody said white people can't, white people can't drink from a fountain. That was said, Black people only, Mexicans only can drink from this fountain. And it was often the dirtier fountain water. Another one, heterosexuality. That's the norm. It's not the norm biologically. I mean, like, yeah, only female and male people can make a child. Only like a uterus and what is testicles and sperm and an ovary. There you go. That is like the basics of it. But like, you don't like me. You're not gonna like me, right? Oh, you know what? Maybe. Yeah, you don't have to be gay, exactly, because there's bisexuality. For me, pansexuality. Like, there's another. I mean, how do I put this? Heterosexuality was not banned. You know, like, you were always able to get married.
You don't have to come out.
Exactly. You can walk in the street holding your heterosexual partner and comfortably. Another one. Shoot. If you're, let's say, poor and rich, that I think to me is like the most, besides race, the most black and white, because, you know, when you're rich, you have the resources. When you're poor, you don't. And that's where, when the rich one is privileged, the poor one is not. And that does, in poor, it can be in many colors, not only people who are not white. And I'm just saying the public responsibility is know when you are privileged and know where you're not. And for federal responsibility, it's just to take care of their citizens with love and compassion. And I know that sounds so utopian and lame, but it comes from there.
Right.
Cheesy, that's the word.
Like Yang said it too, like, you give people $1,000 a month. Like, I don't know if Andrew Wayne that's running.
Oh, yeah, Andrew Yang?
Yeah, he said that, and he was like basically, I'm going to try to kind of use this kind of way of, it's kind of what you were saying, like kind of a universal tax idea. It's kind of
just flat tax.
Flat tax, because it's not fair. Like, I don't make a certain amount of money, and I'm getting taxed as much as like someone that's making $1 million.
Yeah, because of all the tax breaks that were put forward.
I need $100. Like,
right.
You know, for someone, like, literally $100 is my utility plus like my internet. But for someone that's rich, $100 is like a lunch.
But they tip their server.
100%. And I think that, like, having those conversations, there is like reparations for even people that are in a lower tax bracket. And kind of what you were saying about like privilege, of knowing your privilege. Like, I know that in white passing, there is a privilege in that.
Yes.
And also as white men, knowing I've had a lot of people on Instagram say, I'm not privileged, I don't have money. But you should still be poor, but you're still a white cisgendered man. There's always going to be some privilege with that. Like, you're never going to go into a room and someone's like, get out of here. They're going to be like, maybe there's a job we can work out for you. Like, there's opportunities that are created and carved for you because of status. And that's not a thing. It's just facts.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot men and women, but like, there, go ahead. Sorry, that's all.
More cities in America right now.
Right.
Just in terms of, especially the race issue, I think a lot of it has to do with jobs and economics. I think, like, you look at cities like Baltimore, Detroit, a lot of these cities that were very like good with jobs. I think a lot of it is just the jobs went away, and obviously some people of certain races have less opportunities, and it's just what I think happened over time in cities like Baltimore and Detroit was just like a frustration. Like, I look at when the riots were happening, it was literally the entire city just saying, we've had enough. We can't, like, and as human beings, you just get to the point where it's like, screw it, just set the city on fire. And that's what I think was happening a lot, and it's still happening, where it's just like, I think certain groups of people are just like, we're done. It's frustrating. And yeah. And I think, like, I look at my town that I grew up in. My town was built on the Bethlehem Steel Factory. My grandfather worked there. My uncle worked there. And it was like the entire town grew up from that. And the town was able to sustain itself for many years because of that. Mm-hmm. Now the factory's gone. It's gone. And I fear for my town. And I watch them, like, have Facebook, like, groups. And it's like, and my town's a mostly white town. It's a mostly, like, there's only, like, it's 90% white. And there's like 10% African American, like 2% like Hispanic. My town is like, every day I'm like, it's almost like, it's like what's going on today? Like, it's almost becoming like a war zone in my small little suburban town. And it's just, I think it's just a lack of opportunity, a lack of jobs, and it's just like, if you don't have anything to do all day, and you don't have any money, you're like, well, I guess steal, rob, and kill. It's like and I think it's just, I guess, crazy. I think, and a lot, it's interesting too, like, if you look at historically, a lot of the slaves, once they got free, they're like, what else are we going to do? Like, they just went back to the plantation. They
Well,
literally,
didn't know what to do because
they didn't know what to do.
there's no opportunity.
There was no opportunity.
There was no
Yeah.
opportunity.
Like homeless people, like a lot of people think, homeless people should try to job, like get off your ass. Do you think that you can go to an interview and smell and not look right, or go to an interview with a racist
Internet
candidate?
applications.
They're not even
It
gonna
costs
see
money
you.
to apply,
Of
just
course,
to
of
even
course.
get,
They're not even gonna see.
yeah, you have to, and if you have children, who's gonna take care of
But what about your
children?
permanent address?
Exactly.
If you don't have a permanent address, or you have an address that's like farther, like than the location of the office. Let's say you're interviewing in Beverly Hills and you live in Inglewood or whatever. Like you can't, like they're not going to hire you because of the distance. So there's just a lot of different factors. And what you said that was really interesting, you said about them going back to the plantation. There's a lot. That's also systemic racism because you don't know what to do. Like part of me, like even in being in entertainment, I was like, maybe this isn't the right industry for me. I should be a lawyer or a doctor because that's filled with Middle Eastern people. And maybe I should just do that. Like, hence why I have an MBA. Like, I went back to business school because I was like, well, this is like, I should just be a businessman. But what I realized is like, as a Middle Eastern gay man, I should take up space. And I think a lot of people of color don't feel like they can take up space because a lot of, and again, I'm not saying this because I'm being hurtful or singling anyone out, but a lot of cisgender white men are like, we don't want to be around people of color unless there's oh, you're in Crazy Rich Asian. Oh, you're Issa Rae doing Insecure. Now you're interesting. You're making HBO millions of dollars. Now you're viable. Now I want to work with you. And the minute people realize the connections I have, all of a sudden, all of those same white people that don't want to give me jobs want to align with me. They're like, oh, you know so-and-so, let's connect. Like, and there's a lot of, and I think that as people of color, and I'm sure you've experienced this, we have to work 3 times as hard to get half the opportunities, and we have to constantly prove ourselves over and over again. But there are so many, like for example, Jerry O'Connell, great example, great actor, good guy, has gone 3 he's gone 3 talk shows that have all failed. He's getting another one. It's like just that person, again, might be a great guy, great husband, has great kids, whatever. I'm sure he's great. I'm not criticizing, I'm just using him as an example. Is that person is gonna get another opportunity. But a person of color, they make one mistake that shows, oh, then people don't want to see a black talk show host. Or like Lily Singh, if her numbers are low, they're gonna go, no one wants to see a brown late night show. They're not gonna say, oh,
woman too.
a woman. And do they say, oh, we put her at 1:35 at night? Who's gonna be out that late to watch that? They don't care about that. The point is that if for example, if Crazy Rich Asians didn't do well, there would not be another movie. Joy Luck Club would be the last Asian movie, and that would be it. That's it. Like, I mean, that's just how Hollywood works.
Hollywood history class at LA Valley College, and it was interesting because like it really shows you how like Hollywood, they want to be diverse here, but it's also Hollywood. All Hollywood cares about is money. That's at the end of the day. If every single weekend, it's simple. Every weekend, it doesn't matter what it's about. Every weekend, the same thing. Monday morning, every single weekend, Hollywood box office numbers. That's what's continuing. Like they don't care. They don't care about any values. They only care about the dollars.
Yeah, and they don't. And if you look at, for example, a great movie is like Hustlers. It's doing really well. It did really well. The movie is all about, oh, people of color. We have a trans character. The trans character had one line.
Who was the transfer?
Trace Lissette from Transparent.
Oh, okay.
And then like Lizzo had one line. Cardi B had 2 lines. So you're saying you have a movie of people of color, look, but you don't have any lines. So you're promoting a movie.
And
It's like
pay you
pandering. And that's fine. Like again, the financial thing for me is not as important as the visibility and the representation. If you're promoting a movie as this like box office thing with all these people of color, you're not speaking. And again, I get J-Lo's person of color and so is Food. But the point is that most of the characters that you promote are not then speaking. And I think even with the Emmys, everyone's like, oh look, we don't hate black people. We're gonna give awards to them. But again, Pose is a show about black trans women. None of them got nominations. The only one was the palpable black gay man that you like. He's good enough. He's gay enough, but he's not too gay. He's not too trans. He's good. Like that's not like, I mean, that's still very systemic racism. And Hollywood is a great example of that. Yeah. You're gonna get, or even we were talking before we started filming off camera. Where are the talent writers? There is literally, if you look at any late night show, there's one woman writer. There may be a person of color, and that's it. Because for them, it's like, listen, we don't on talent. Look on camera, they're all black. They're all Asian. We have representation. What about off camera? That's so much more important consistently doing it at such a high level. They have Indian clothes about a Middle Eastern character doing Bollywood dancing, but then
Who's
with
directed?
a Latina.
Oh,
Right.
wait, who's the
Yeah, and Naomi is Indian and she's Indian and Latina.
Oh,
Naomi
I didn't know
that played a Jasmine Middle Eastern character.
Yeah.
How did that again? And you know what they
Oh,
say?
Guy Ritchie directed.
But Gary Ritchie directors, they know what they say. They say casting directors are like, we don't have any Middle Eastern actors. If you say that, then how are people going to even come to the audition? And I think that goes back to reparations, opening up the opportunity.
Yes.
But what happens is that people of color have to do their own projects. So Issa Rae has their own project, then you have Black Lady Sketch Show, and then what happens is a lot of white men have spoken up against that, saying, "Oh, another all-Black show." You have every show is all white. Why didn't you just pick up on that? Or like Shane Gillis from SNL saying, "Well, I said that, whatever. Let's just move on." No, you said that a year ago.
Yeah, it wasn't even.
It wasn't even that long ago. Or like even again to take it further, Dave Chappelle, even a person of color, speaking about a trans experience, talking about being an Asian man, not acceptable. Those are not acceptable things, but we allow those things to happen because of finances. We gave them $70 million. Netflix is making money. They're like, well, if we're making money, then who cares? That all goes back to like reparations, I think.
You know what? I'm gonna backtrack a little bit about me of saying like we shouldn't have this conversation of reparations. Well, because we do have also a little bit of responsibility.
Sure.
Like we can
We're like the
help.
allies.
We can help fund people who marginalized people. You know, normally, and I'm marginalized. I'm white passing too. I can totally pass as somebody who's white.
Me too.
Yeah. Man, you're so right, man. I wouldn't have thought you were.
I know, I was like, what?
Why did you know there's a little Native American in you?
Ginger's hard. My brother's a ginger, actually. He has a different dad. Like
I know, I'm like, what?
he's totally redhead and freckles and stuff like that. And even he's like a little bit of a backburner.
Oh.
No love for the Irishman.
Prince Harry really.
But I think that we need to provide opportunities.
Yeah.
Like, we just need to help people with opportunities.
Hire people of color. Like if you have a show or a short film, and hire a grip that's a Black woman. Like if you
Yeah.
hire people like, and when you say, oh, but I don't know if they do it,
Oh,
you've
yeah.
given an opportunity to someone. Right?
I've done all the work. Yeah, exactly. I've done all the work.
Hire too many women.
Because they don't, it's the boys club, right? And minorities don't want to be a part of that. But I'm telling you,
It's
like,
scary to be
it
in
is,
the
of
boys
course,
club.
but find
but-
a lesbian, like a Black lesbian woman, she can hold the grip all day. So there's a level of you saying you can't find it, but like you have to give, like you said, open those opportunities to people, and they'll actually feel like they can try out for that. But
Yeah.
if I saw a listing for a casting that said attractive Caucasian men only, well then I'm not gonna go to that. Like where you
I'm
open
gonna
it
go to that. I'm
No,
gonna
yeah,
go to
non-binary, dude.
myself.
That's true. I mean, but if you didn't say that, maybe you would have met with me or maybe some other people that maybe are right casting that still look like that would have been a more colorful character, and maybe your show would be better. I mean, how many shows are in pilot season? They all get canceled. Why? Because they don't put diverse cast. But now shows are understanding that. Even CBS, like new people of color, and they have a gay character, and they understand that people want to see people they know, even if they are in the Midwest. You don't know who's in the Midwest. Someone could be in the closet. Someone could. They're being a color. You said your name was 10%. You don't. I mean, who knows? I don't know. Like, so there are people that want to watch shows like that, and they want something that speaks to them. You know, like when I was a kid, Queer as Folk was an all-white cast of gay men. That spoke to me, even if it was an all-white cast. So you never know what is going to speak to people. So yeah.
See, like yesterday, I went out to, I was doing a freelance work and I had to promote The Masked Singer. And I went to CS Studios, Fox Studios. I went to a lot of studios. And you know what? There were a lot of women there, but they were all white women. And for me, as someone who's not like white, truly white, or completely white, I felt a little out of my element. And you know, like someone who's of color,
Is that-
I'm sorry?
Is that internal, or did they make you feel like you weren't?
No, it's a little internal.
I mean, I've lived in Hawaii where I was a minority, and definitely people called me Holly, which is a very, you know, yeah, it's very derogatory. It means without breath.
Like crap. Like,
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it's a derogatory. But I mean, I've gotten into bars that are all Hawaiian.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden I felt like the music stopped and everyone looked at me, and I've had people put their hands on my shoulder and say, you need to go.
I know I've heard that twice.
And so, I mean, that's my only, as like a white American, it's the only time I've ever had that internal feeling where like, I don't belong here. Because we're in my, it was rough, but I'm also me, so I was sort of just like, you know. But like, racism in America stems from like just bad science back in the day in a lot of ways. Like there was a lot of bad science that went into justifications because Europe banned slavery. And so in order to justify enslaving the Africans, they had to tell themselves they're not human. And all this whole idea that they're savages, that they're less than human, comes from really bad science at the time and wanting to justify it. They wanted the free labor. Yeah. And like after the Civil War, we fought a huge bloody war because of the sin of slavery, in my opinion. You know, like we needed to. That was our curse for even allowing it into the Constitution. And afterwards, the black free slaves were not equals. You know, they just weren't. And any time they started building themselves up, there was a white man there that tore them down. And like he said, they went straight to the plantation because, hey, yeah, you're free. Here's 2 cents a day now. Get back to work, you know, because they didn't know what else to do. Right. And if they tried to make their own farms, no one would buy their products until they had to go back to being an indentured servant to the plantation. And especially in the South, like the Jim Crow laws were all designed to stop African Americans from becoming successful in our society. And that's where government should step in, is when there are obvious laws like the segregation. Like I go out of my way to open doors for any minority with gray hair because I know at one point in their life someone that looked just like me slammed the door in their face and said no colors, you know. So I go out of my way to do that because I also grew up very poor in an all-white neighborhood, but most of my friends were minorities because we were poor together, you know what I mean. And when I'd walk around with my white friends, we wouldn't get harassed by cops, but when I walked around with my black friends, we did get stopped and patted down and just randomly searched just because I was hanging out with non-whites. And it happened to me. So I get it. And do we need financial reformations? I don't know. I mean, I think it's a waste of money. And I think there's an economic principle that it's easy to spend other people's money. If I'm giving you $1,000 a month just because of slavery back in the day, I think you're going to waste that money, and it's going to either bring you down or make you more dependent on the state. And I think a lot of like socialist plans are designed to make minorities more dependent on the state so they're less independent. Like capitalism in America, the dream of becoming the wealthy big stars and just everything, the upward mobility is based on individual confidence and ability. But in America, there's also that horrible racism going on where if I was colored and I had everything I have, I might not have the same positions I have today. Just because someone looked at, he's black, get the hell out of here. You know, and that's wrong. And I think our schooling after Martin Luther King in like the 90s and beyond has really developed a mentality of equality towards racism. Like we don't want to be going, oh, you're Hispanic, I don't want you working for me, or I can't date you. I mean, I married a Latino woman, so you know, like I just it's shameful, especially with the cops. I mean, my shirt, my dad made this shirt. It says, I kneel for the fallen, I stand for the flag, the whole Kaepernick thing, and like I get why he took the knee. I mean, he's fed up, and it still happens. It's still happening. Like just police, just boom, boom, boom. It's like, dude, just because they're afraid of the black man. And because like if I'm doing something, they're gonna be more lenient with me.
One of my friends, he took like a job
Yeah.
purposely in South Central, and I think like one of his, and I love this guy, he's awesome. Like at home church, his purpose in life is to really bridge the gap between police and like the community. And he's been to the Congo on mission trips, and he really, because I think like there is this divide between the cops and like in the society where it's like they're risking every single day, like especially in like some of the more dangerous neighborhoods in the city, like every day, like they're risking their lives.
They really are. It's a hard job. It's a really hard job. I could not be a cop.
You can't be like, you put on that uniform, you're taking that oath. Like I have a friend that works in his house.
Taking the oath.
You're taking the oath, and he said there are times where, you know, if we don't pull a weapon on someone, then we're gonna lose our lives. I understand that, but my cousin lives in Singapore, and all the cops there are in plain clothes. So I think something about the uniform really separates you and makes them feel like when they put on the uniform, it's like a costume. Like if you've ever done a movie and you put on that, and all of a sudden you feel like you're different. They put on that and they feel like they're invincible and they can do whatever they want. And they're getting a slap on the lip, right? Trayvon Martin, nothing happened. There are so many other cases. And even like I said, I was harassed outside my own house. I pay my rent on time, I pay my taxes on time, and I was harassed, searched. And that's not the first time I've been put on a curb before. And that's just being Middle Eastern. So I'm not even a person, like I'm not black. But there's a level, even that, in a lot of the verbiage in this country too, like even like a lot of people still in the South will say Negro, colored, and there's a lot of, or mulatto. I was in Beverly Hills and my friend is half black, half white, and a lady was like, "Oh, you're beautiful mulatto woman. You can't say mulatto." And a lot of, we understand, because I think when you're LGBTQ, you really understand pronouns and words mean a lot of power, but a lot of cisgender people don't understand that. And then that extends to race. You have to use, don't say I'm an Arab. I'm not. I've had some people go, "Oh, you're an Arab." I'm, no, I'm Persian. And then I had some white lady correct me and say, "No, you need to say Iranian." Honey, stay in your lane. You stay over there. You don't tell someone how to identify. And I think that is really the root of the racist issue in this country is identification. Is stop identifying people. And like you said, you're walking with your white friends, nothing happens. You are with your black friends. There is such a clear distinction, and a lot of people don't understand the difference. And I think what you're doing, which I think is so powerful, is that you're taking on your personal reparations and opening a door. And at first I was like, "Is that pandering?" But then I was like, "No, that's his personal reparation." And I think it's beautiful to like go about it. Like for me, what I do is I do that for trans people. I really try to be aware and be an ally, because I know how scary it is to be in the street and to be murdered regularly, and no one talks about it. So I think that it's so important to what we can do on the ground level. I think it's so, a lot of your questions have been very macro, and I think a lot of what I think is more important is on a micro level. It's not really like, what can the government do for reparations, right? It's like, what can you do? Marry a Latina woman if you're attracted to her and you love her. Marry a person of another color. It's okay if you look around and all your friends look like you, act like you, talk like you, there's a problem. And I'm not saying you don't have to be friends with all white people, just make a little bit of a change. Like there were moments where I looked around and I was only friends with Persian people. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I aligning myself only with people that are yes people? You need to be around people that challenge you. Like, I like when you challenge me and you make me sit and think, am I being sexist? Am I being racist? Like, that is power, right? Like shows like The View where people are fighting, that's important. Those conversations are important. People like Meghan McCain should be having opinions. I don't want to silence people unless they're not, as long as they're not offensive. There's no reason for people to be silent. Like, I think people should speak their truth in an appropriate way.
Real quick, if I can pivot to something here. Like you're speaking about the macro versus micro. Let's sort of invert that and go straight to the top. Trump gets reelected in 2020 with the racial divides within different combinations of races. What can, knowing his temperament and personality and his values, what would you like him to do 2020, 2024 to help with that? To help bridge those.
Trump has a lot of power over, like, my dad, he just passed away in May, but he was a full-on Trumper, man. He was donating money to him, like, I'm like, yeah, I could use that money, Dad. What are you doing? but I think he had a lot of power over, like, the baby boomer generation that was caught in the middle of the Civil Rights Act. Like, they grew up where it was normal to save money. Say the N-word. That was just the colored folk, that's what you call them. No big deal. I think he has a lot of power over those people, and if he made choices that make sure his words were always pro equality, pro like understanding, he could have a lot of influence on a lot of the bigotry in the world. But if he chooses to be like, lock her up, ban Muslims, build the walls to keep them criminals out of here, like those type of things are inflammatory, and he will make the problem worse. There's already been an uprising in hate crimes, and I mean that's with rifles right now too, but minor. It's like a 50, 80 more than it's been, but it's just like it's up. Like we've been steadily going down in these things, and then it's been a little uptick. He could personally choose to use really huge, equally good words to make the world a better place if he chose to.
Isn't it better PR? From a PR standpoint,
Yeah.
The PR campaign that Trump did is elegant.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
From the hat to
Yeah.
to the social media, to everything he did, even becoming the library that Comedy Central did, like where all of his tweets are coming in. There is a level of like, he understood how the industry worked. Being an entertainer, he understood how to entertain. He was shocked when he won. But what he did is he's so smart. Instead of speaking, like for example, I was running for office, I wouldn't speak to you guys, I would speak to her directly. Because I'm like, to they directly, because I would be like, listen, you get me, right? You go to what people get you. And a lot of politicians speak to everyone. And people, unfortunately, that kind of very general message gets lost. But remember, like in ASB in high school, when the person I got up and said, we're going to get in and out every day, you know, they got elected. That's what Trump did. He said, I'm going to build a wall. I'm going to like everyone's going to get a job, no matter if you're talented or have a degree or nothing. So like he gave promises, and he didn't, again, when you become president, you don't have to follow through. You're like, see ya, I'm here for 4 years. Try to impeach me, right? Like you really, and again, he knew what he was doing. So I think that moving forward, there is a chance, like you made a joke, like it could really happen again and he could be president. I don't think it's outside the scope of possibility, because there are so many Democratic candidates that are all doing infighting.
Yeah.
That all of them are like stepping on each other's toes. I'm like, this is not the time for Democrats to fight. It's the time for Democrats to come together. So I think that like,
The thing is, our country's being divided. I'll never forget, I was at the inauguration, and I was there. I'm from Baltimore. It's only an hour away, so I just stayed all Christmas. I stayed for a month in Baltimore, and this is the one thing I would never forget for the rest of my entire life. So there was a whole bunch of us, a bunch of white people that they walked, and then this African American girl and a guy that looked like me, around like college age, came in. They're like, oh, looking around like, there's no white people here. I mean, there's no white people here. There's no people of color here. And like, she was trying to start a fight, and then we're all like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you doing? Like, we don't want you here. Like, what are you doing? It's like, why are you trying to start something with us? And they're like, all we're doing is making some comment that there's no African American, there's no black people here. And then this older African American guy, Trump, MAGA hat, was there, and he's like, he literally went up to her and was like, stop, like we don't want you here. Like, you're trying to start a fight. Like, you're trying to, like, the purpose of you being here is to try to start a fight, and like, we're not going to engage. Like, we're not. Like, you don't have to engage with you if that's what your purpose.
Just like Trump used everything you said to get elected, the Democrats are trying to double down on it to get all the minority votes by propagating him as even more racist than he might be, and nasty, you know. So the division that he's talking about is that there is this huge division that is being propagated by the two political parties, and they want us divided. Because as long as we're divided and we think if Trump wins, we're screwed, or if Barry Sanders wins, we're screwed, then we're going to vote for both of them. And both parties are owned by the same billionaires in this country. And so they win either way.
you can run for office if you're the same person.
No.
You want to launch code to destroy the entire world that is the same person. That goes to say for Bill Clinton, Obama, I don't care who you are. There is no level of like a fully like psychosis. You got some psychosis if you want to be the leader of the free world. So I think at the end of the day, whoever becomes president is going to have their issues. They're not going to be perfect. And there is a lot of systemic racism. We were talking about issues that Trump has done internationally, embarrassed himself. that there's gonna be a lot of cleanup. There's a lot of he's like a bull in a china shop. Great for TV, not for the real world. When you go to Japan and you go to the Middle East, these are very different energies, right? Japan has a lot of boundaries. Middle East is in your face. Trump isn't. He's in your face everywhere. That doesn't work. I mean, his biggest stance right now is vaping. I'm like, 2 people died. Do you realize how many people are dying of gun violence? I mean, the Sandy Hook promise, that commercial, I don't think any of you guys have seen it, where the kids are tying a tube sock around a gun. I mean, and the commercial's trying to like bring attention to something, but it's also done in a very light way. And I'm like, I don't really understand this commercial because it's like very traumatic. But for a lot of kids, like Kamala Harris asked, like, who has had to do a drill, and everyone raised their hand. Like, I didn't have to do a gun violence drill when I was in school. And so the kids now are all doing it. So there's a lot of stuff that like we don't talk about, but then we focus on like deep. I'm like, that's what you're focused on? Like that's what I don't understand.
It was a class of 2000 and it was right after Columbine, and we were doing intruder drills in my junior, senior year of high school. And so, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think
We want to own guns because I think I'm going to lose you.
yeah, like you were saying, it's like,
I think you will.
like you were saying, he went to one audience, and it's like, I don't think, like, and that's the thing, like I was saying earlier, like, just because you're a Trump supporter doesn't mean you're racist, or doesn't mean you're like against, it's like, but that's like become almost like, because of what happened with
You're
like,
supporting a racist person, though. I understand that you might not be racist, you might have black friends, you might be married to a black person, that's fine. But at the end of the day, when you support someone that is categorically, openly racist, there is a level of you supporting racism. It doesn't mean you're racist. I'm not going to put that because I don't think I know Trump supporters. I have a Persian uncle that's a Trump supporter. But there is a level of him supporting a racist man. And even the way you said that, like, at the rally, the black girl came in and everyone, oh, you're going to start trouble. That's a bunch of white people thinking that a person of color is necessarily going to create trouble.
was her purpose there?
So you assumed her purpose was there the minute you saw her skin color.
What she did was she came in, we were just all like at the rally, and she came in like, oh, no black people here. None of us were saying
a statement that was true. That's not being that's not saying advice. That's true.
it wasn't true. There was a black person there.
One black person is not really true. And I think a lot of white people say that, oh, you're trying to, I have a lot of people on Instagram that message me, oh, you're angry Middle Eastern men, you're so aggressive, it's always aggro, why can't you just be happy with what you have? That's white people trying to temper minorities. Like, stop being so dramatic. If a group of Middle Eastern or black people get together, this doesn't mean there's going to be a riot. But what white people assume, when I walk by a group of white people, I'm like, farmers market. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, aside from a Trump rally, it's a farmers market. You guys get together. There is, I'm sorry, but people of color, minority people are pushed to get together because we have issues in our lives. Like, we don't get together to support a racist president. Like, that's not what we do. And I understand you, I'm not saying you're a racist, I'm just saying you were an hour away, you went to see a historical event. I'm not speaking to you specifically, I'm speaking, again, at a macro level. Most of the people in that space are supporting a racist president. And at that point, they didn't know he was racist, but now we know. It's been 3 years. Like, it's hard now. A lot of Trump supporters have recanted their vote. Like, they are not as so much supportive. They're like, he's doing too much. Like, and again, a lot of the stuff you said made sense. Again, if you're out of work, like you said, factories are going out of business in Detroit, and someone comes up and says, I'm going to get you a job. Like, fuck these minorities that are taking your job. Nobody is taking your job. They have better degrees. So if someone has a nurse degree or is a doctor, they're going to get your job. That's not your job to have anyway. You have a high school degree. You're not going to get a doctor's job. I never understand that when people say, oh, you took our job. No, you didn't. You're saying my dad took your job. He's a businessman owning his own company. He took your job. You don't have a business. Nobody took your job. Like, that's what frustrates me, because it's the idea that, like, you're less of an American. Because, like, my dad, I don't pay a lot of taxes. I don't make a lot of money, but he pays a lot of taxes. So, like, he is allowed to be here. He can take up as much space as he needs to. But that's kind of, but see, even that, you're having to defend yourself, like, in a country that you are a U.S. citizen. That's kind of where I have an issue with this.
I think just one comment, when you support a person like Trump, sure, you may have great interpersonal relationships with people who are not like you, white versus non-white, or etc. Class, you are not treating them bad interpersonally, but systematically it speaks volumes. That's my only.
So to me, when we're talking about politicians, it's like, well, everyone has a personal opinions, and it goes to a certain degree. Like I mentioned, Trump could make changes by being nicer about it. But
end of the day, it's policies. It's a you're voting for. You should be voting for policies, not just the person.
Sure.
And I mean, when you look at what Trump's done in the last 3.5 years, it's been good. I mean, unemployment's down, tax revenues are up. I mean, there's a lot of good things going on in minority neighborhoods, minus the whole encampment crap going on the border. It's so horrible. It's
That's
just,
a little hole.
yeah, it really,
That's a hole in your.
Yeah.
Unemployment down is great, but
yeah,
like if people are being removed from the country
yeah.
and your unemployment going up, I'm like, I don't really know if those numbers are true because you're removing people from the country and you're saying unemployment up. I mean down because then you're removing people that are unemployed. So that's what I'm saying.
I get it. It's there's. I don't know.
People always say that, you know, the United States, you know, unemployment is down, but a lot of these jobs are not with integrity. They are jobs that are like.
No, I think she's saying like full-time employers, like if you get 35 hours a week.
You get full benefits. Is that what you mean by integrity?
Like in Amazon, you know, you can't even leave your place to work to use the restroom. I mean, people have to wear diapers to work because they're not given a break.
Is
And
that
so,
here?
yeah, that's here.
But
And
that's like a stateside ran business.
yeah,
And the people aren't taking potty breaks.
Yeah, it's not crazy. You know that Amazon's not in a lot of trouble
yeah, and I mean,
because they're coming to LA.
they're
There's
getting-
a lot of like new laws for that.
There's a lot of-
They don't want like people to end up
For rights in California, for sure.
It's better than other states, but again, you can get away with it.
Well, there's always loopholes, man. You set a limit and you create a loophole just by setting that limit. It's like, well, just don't do that.
For labor laws, like I used to work in fashion, so I've been on denim line, and there's a lot of companies that I compete with in the US that were like, oh, we'll work them like 20 hours a day. And I was like, I don't want to work with people like that. Because that's not only going to jeopardize my denim line, it's going to jeopardize, like, I don't want to put people in those positions. Like when I was in China, I went to a Monopoly factory and they have a line. So if you step beyond, like they stretch, like a buzzer goes off. Thousands of people working, and they told me that there was a fire there one year. Like literally, the guy was straight faced, was like a tour guide. 2,000 people died, and he was just like, and then we just moved on. I was like, that, you know. So there's, and it's funny because in the U.S. we think we're so much better than that. Like, we would never do that. It happens a lot. Like it happens, and we don't talk about it because, or even human trafficking. There's LA is one of the biggest human trafficking hubs. We don't want to talk about stuff like that because people are uncomfortable. You know, people are very uncomfortable with topics like that. People don't want to talk about murder of trans people. They don't want to talk about sex workers being murdered. You know, like they don't. People are like, no, LA is we're in California. We're chill. We smoke weed. Like there's a lot of stuff that happens. I mean, millions of people have been trafficked out of LA because it's a port. So these kind of things like we don't talk about, but like, and politicians don't want to talk about because nobody wants to go up to a pulpit and say sex trafficking. Like it's not a sexy topic. So I know.
We were about to drain the swamp, and then they just killed them all.
And I think honestly, like the more in this presidency, I honestly I like Mike Pence more. I think Donald Trump is honestly like I don't think, like you said earlier, I don't think he thought he was going to win. I honestly don't think he thought he was going to win.
No,
and I think he's playing the presidency like a reality show. I think America is now the reality show, and it's from somebody that loves entertainment. It's like our presidency. It's like I turn on the news and it's like I'm not watching the news anymore. I'm watching like a reality show.
It's like his tweets are going after like celebrities. Like, why are you going after Chrissy Teigen? What was Chrissy Teigen, John Legend's wife, ever on your radar as a president? Like that, she should never be on your radar. For her to call you, you know, whatever she called you. Like that's just like you don't have to put yourself. You put yourself in this, and you go to the gutter. You're gonna. I don't know. It's not presidential.
On an individual level, you guys could go around now. On an individual level, if you could give me objectively, subjectively, doesn't matter, your top president out of the 45, the bottom president, and then where you put Trump in there, and maybe a couple of sentences on why your reasoning. But yeah, Joseph, will start with you.
We can learn more. He's not perfect man, but he was exceptional himself was struggling with concepts of what the country would become. He's probably has to start thinking through what civil rights for blacks and how that was going to. But he was very busy, with the war, and so but and genius and everything. So I'm sure if he had lived longer and everything, he would have had great ideas about those issues too. It's just he didn't get a chance to really address them fully. And in his century and stuff, he didn't have, like you were saying, that he didn't have complete understanding yet of how we could all be together as the same communities and stuff, and completely integrated. He probably hadn't got to that point in his mind, but so he would be like the greatest leader, fortunate having as president. And like a really bad president to me would be Lyndon Johnson, for lots of different reasons. I won't even get into the Kennedy assassination stuff. It's just just for his own presidency, really disastrous in a lot of ways. And then so Trump, would be a figure. I really see him as an outlier. He's really not a political figure at all. I support a lot of what he's brought as initiatives and taking stands on certain issues that deal with economics, tariffs, international court, and what the responsibilities that we're doing, trying to take a new tack for the United States in the world, but not just continuing on policies and agreements from World War II. Just we're going to keep fighting the same battles over and over, and like the bull in the china shop, shaking things up a lot with international agreements, trade, thinking of American workers, and American businesses should have more presence and do more for their American, the countries that they came from, before they had factories in China, factories in Asia and stuff. And so I see a lot of positive of what he's brought to the table, and then I wouldn't really classify him as really in a traditional accomplishments as a political figure. It's like we had Oprah Winfrey or we had Mark Scorsese or someone trying to be president. It's a whole different. You're getting a whole different result, and but I would say that it's not all bad, and that if he had a second term and started to take some steps in a different direction of, like he's already said, he's interested in supporting red flag laws for gun registration. A traditional Republican wouldn't take that position. If he reinforced more rights for gay, lesbian, and trans in federal government, in military, and in different areas, he could steer some positive directions. I think if he took the time to be more independent and not just think I'm pleased and voted for me. Abraham Lincoln didn't think that way. He once he was in office, he would go against the Republican Party or the establishment figures around him. He felt that he knew the right course of action.
If you had to give them a ranking of 45, Trump.
Oh, right. Well, I mean,
If you had to.
I mean, I guess if there's 45 presidents, then I'm sure he's better than a dozen. I would think he's not the worst person, and he's certainly not the least intelligent person that we have as a leader.
Top president would be Ronald Reagan. A very conservative leader, I think he was a very strong leader. He helped convince Gorbachev to tear down the wall. I think he just was very conservative, and I think he held the Bible up to a high standard. He went to the church I go to, Bel Air Church, and I just think he was good at, like, a lot of his policies were based off of the morals that he believed in. And I mean, even some of the bad stuff he did, like the war on drugs, I think he did it out of the intention of, like, I want to help. Like, I think everything he did, he did it with a moral frame of, like, I want to help society. Because he was an actor, he was like, I'll just did the California governor and the president. He just wanted to help people. I think my least president would be Bill Clinton. I think a lot of the policies that he did of the trade is kind of where we are today. And I think just a lot of trade policies he's done that helps us. Since my girlfriend says she hates Hillary with a passion because she stayed with Bill Clinton, and because her mother cheated on her mother, so that's why she hates Hillary Clinton with a passion. It's because she stayed with him.
And where would you?
Yeah, what I was saying, I wouldn't even classify him as a politician. But that's the thing, is like, I think the reason a lot of people support him is because we got him. We're like, even like, I think a lot of Republicans were like, George Bush comes in, then Barack Obama was way too far left, and I think we just kind of got, he really was like, I'm not even a politician. Like, yeah, I'm running for president, but I'm not a politician. And I think he convinced a lot of people, like, I'm not a politician. I still don't think he's a politician. But I think him picking Mike Pence is the smartest thing he can do, because I think he is a politician, and I think what needs to happen is Mike needs to have a lot more conversations, like, because I think he was a lot like him, but he reined himself in, and I think he needs to have more conversations with Donald and be like, hey, you can't say that. And, like, I know that's what you're thinking, but you can't. Because I think there's a lot of things that Mike wants to say that he doesn't.
Yeah.
Because if you look at, like, John Oliver, I love John. He did a really funny bit about Mike, where Mike Pence used to be a lot more like Donald until he became a politician.
He understood the game.
Yeah, he understood the game. Yeah.
Ooh, I took my favorite, so I'll go JFK. Simply because he took on the beast that is the corruption in America, politics. He won, even though he was a Catholic. It was a huge deal. His policies were, he lowered taxes, which created an economic boom for 10 years. He avoided the Cuban Missile Crisis with peace and dignity. And that's an amazing thing to do. I mean, at that time in history, it was such a hostile thing. And he got the missiles out of there without firing a shot. Like, that's incredible. I mean, the whole Bay of Pig things might have a lot to do with how he lost his life. Mm-hmm. And that's why he's my personal hero. Is he sacrificed everything to challenge the corruption that's there, and he ran on a Democratic ticket, but still he originally was doing Keynesian math, and it wasn't working for his first year. And they're like, well, it isn't working. And they're like, well, do this instead. And he lowered taxes. He listened. He went across the aisle and said, what's the best policy? And he implemented it. Then he saw the corruption. He called it out. Lost his life. He's my favorite for that. Lincoln undid slavery. You know, that was amazing. My least favorite, man, I have so many least favorite. Like LBJ and Nixon as a bundle have done horrible things for us. But like, I'm just gonna go at Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson, because he gave us income tax and the Federal Reserve. And then Trump. I mean, I would love to hear what Ulysses S. Grant would have said if he had Twitter. Fucking Scotch is making me just, you know, he'd just belligerently tweeting and shit, and it'd be great. So I mean, just policy-wise, I like lowering corporate taxes. I hated that he raised the tax on the middle class. I'm totally against the tariffs. I'm totally against building the wall. I got to give him a little slow clap for what he did with Korea. It was a very ballsy move. When he was doing it, I was like, dude, we are playing game economics with a psychopath that has a nuclear bomb. I don't know how this could go. But he won. He won. He bravo. But I mean, he's in the middle of the pack, maybe lower end, like 18th on the list. But I mean, there's so many bad presidents that it's just like it's they really are. I mean, yeah, about 18 seems reasonable. Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
I don't have to. They all-
The only one that didn't was John Quincy Adams, but he died to like even come in if he was going to. So I don't have one, and the bad presidents, they all committed, like I said, something that, you know, when you look back, it's like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. And and they're all big mumbo jumbo to me, so I wouldn't rank anybody. That's about it.
Then to specify your,
Sure.
if you could quantify Trump, like a percentage, what's the percentage that you can agree with or that you like that he's done and the percentage that you don't?
Sure.
Yeah. I imagine it's easy, but
I block him on Twitter because I just think everything he says is just shit. And like every time I see a tweet, like for example, the young activist, Greta, her, and he's just like, what a nice young woman. It's like, why are you just like slapping your face, just like saying things like that? So I don't know. The system here is a mess. So like, I don't know. When you just do like little things to me, it's not enough. So I don't know what you mean by like a percentage.
policy-wise, what do you agree with? If how many percentage, even in just his platform, I guess, that you.
I agree with like 1%. I don't know if I do. I'm sorry. I don't. Like the Muslim ban was what, the beginning of it, like 2017. That was like, holy shit! Like, oh, this is where we're gonna go. Okay, and then it's the transgender ban. It's like, oh, okay, another one. And then like, even before he was president, he's like saying grab by the pussy. It's like, oh, okay, you want to grab? Okay, alrighty then. So no, already bad. 0%. Like you need to fucking do something about all of that things. Like little money here and there, China, North Korea. Like it's nothing to me. Like you treat people like shit. Sorry.
So well done. So my favorite president, Jimmy Carter wrote a book talking about Palestinians. Like, he really stood up for the Palestinian side. And a lot of times you get a lot of death threats, you gotta get security, you don't hear that side. And my family's been to Palestine, and I have a lot of friends that are Palestinian Israeli, and I think that what it comes down to is a human interest issue. It's not really a religion thing, and there's so much about land, there's so many things that were decreed, and it just kind of goes back to indigenous people too as well. Like you can't decree land, like especially a holy land, to one group because it's not indigenous land. It's a holy land. It belongs to 3 monotheistic religions. So I think that I like that he kind of spoke up, and he obviously wrote a book, so he made money on it. But like at the same time, I love that he spoke up, and that's really powerful. I do love Abraham Lincoln because there's a lot of stories about him being queer and having a lover. So I love that. I already taught Lincoln support her lover, but I love that he has that. So there's a very interesting. And then as far as like worst president, I mean obviously, and I think Nixon was a nightmare. I think that being so tone deaf was the problem with Nixon. Like I think that the worst is when you're so pathological that you think you're the best and you're the best and you're not. And that comes a lot. It's kind of like the Hitler syndrome too, like you think you're the best, but there's a lot of either childhood trauma or you're like been molested or what. And I think Nixon had a lot of those same issues. And I see a lot of that kind of reflected in Trump. There's a lot of trauma in him losing money and not being a billionaire. And for him, it's like, I'm president, so fuck all, like everyone. This idea, like, when you become successful, you win an award, kind of like, to that person in high school that bullied me. There's a lot of Trump bullying. I think a lot of his friends, when he lost the money, probably didn't want to hang out with him a lot. Like growing up with money, when like a lot of my friends, their dads would make bad investments, lose their money, they're no longer invited in that inner circle. You're not driving the right cars, you're not making the same tax bracket, you're kind of cut. So I think that with Trump, like that's what happened with him. And I think that where I rank him is I kind of have trouble ranking him, but again, I don't think that anything he's doing. Some of it's very intentional, but a lot of it's a lack of education, knowledge, political background. I'm not saying that he shouldn't, like, yes, I am saying he shouldn't be president, but I think what he needs, like you said with Penn, he needs someone like a Dick Cheney to really guide, and not that it was the right thing, but at least someone that has political knowledge to guide you. So I would put him somewhere in the like.
But not Dick Cheney, just someone like.
Yeah.
And we say that I was I never thought in my life, I was like, oh my God, Bush wasn't that bad. Because there's a difference between being stupid and categorically going out of your way to hurt women. And I think Trump's somewhere in there. So I think I would rank him somewhere like, I would say like, I don't know, like, I don't know, like, I don't think that he's very high on my list. Like, are we ranking like, so higher is better?
Yeah, number one.
So yeah, I would say like something, I mean, I guess just 45, because he's 45. I don't know, like, I don't really, like, for me, I'm just like, you're pretty low on the channel. Well, because he has no knowledge. And the closest person that kind of didn't have the knowledge was Ronald Reagan. But I think he also had the fervor and energy to learn, which is the difference that Trump doesn't have. I think Ronald Reagan wanted to learn about politics, wanted to be involved, and even though he was natural, like, he still wanted to kind of be involved. And he said something about it. He never said the word Asian. But that's a different topic. That's I'm done.
Okay, I think we're ready for lunch. 30 minutes, okay, for everybody? Okay. Is anyone parked out here?
Yeah,
Yeah, I parked inside.
Okay, well, I'll go down with you guys.
I'm gonna walk to, they said it was just like not even driving.
No, I'll drive us. I'm not on the street.
Oh.
We can go grab some.
Sure,
Can we do it?
sure.
Okay, because your car's in the lot, so you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works. And anyone else in the lot?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll still walk in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when I come back, finish parking the lot.
Yes, as far as I know. I have not been in the lot.
By the time we don't have enough time.
he hasn't had, Mark Wahlberg hasn't had scarring.
Yes, I don't see it. Is. They killed for more years. How many more years? And some of it is you get it back. It's like, are we they put it in the past. I was wondering about that. Flowers. Best friends with like the director of the school, and he came by and spoke to Adam. He came by and spoke. It was just so funny because like he was like talking like he's like Steven Spielberg. It's like, okay, you did a couple good movies, the Rush Hours were good, but it's like he acts like he's Steven Spielberg. It's like, okay, you're Brett Ratner. I mean, he's a really good producer. Like I think he's done more producing than good producing, but like as a director, he's like him. Actually, if you want
Back on the couch? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
separating.
I'll be on this.
Yeah.
You want to be in the middle?
Yeah, in the middle.
All right. Well, they have a lot of interaction.
Yeah.
Come on, you gotta sit there because he's to the lake. Really fun. They'll come into the car. Thanks for volunteering. I mean, it's just that, I don't know if I get a word in edgewise. I want you to get a word in edgewise. I want you to talk. I will. Just tell me to shut up. No. I agreed with a lot of what you said already. We have a lot more than on timing for those, if any of us have to leave at 3 or 3:10, is that doable at this point?
Oh yeah. Just let me know. I know we have a 2:30. Yeah.
I can stay till, a little after 3.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
That's when, because I gotta get to my car and I know
Yeah, exactly.
we're not doing something.
Yeah, we'll just do like another 20-minute here or 40 or whatever break. Do another little segment break. Yes. Oh wait. Yeah, you guys you're good. Very dynamic compared to Boston. They're
probably fiery, right?
Yeah, they're very fiery. Different liberals, different conservatives than but East Coast. Yeah.
It's a whole different.
Yeah.
A conservative in California, it's a whole, like Ronald Reagan, it's a whole different mindset of who you're used to working with.
I feel yeah, West Coast because you have the beach and like everybody's so chill. You're just gonna have a chill discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Like all different views.
Oh, yeah. It's freezing half the year.
I'm scared of what's gonna. It's gonna take a left turn. I'm like scared what it was gonna do.
That was a wiffle ball. Now the real.
I know. I'm like scared.
Let's try to form a consensus, and you have quite a bit of options to pick from here, but we gotta agree on two different things. What is one positive thing that the U.S. has or does that's better than any other country objectively? There's not one other country on the same level. And what is something that we must adopt from a specific other country? Something to incorporate here that we, at gunpoint, we must bring it in and make our lives better.
We have to all agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it has to be one thing that we all agree on.
One positive and one negative.
Oh, okay.
You can have plenty of different ones, but.
So we should like when we talk, we should kind of convince everyone, or like.
Yeah, or try to meet in the middle somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess I could start. I mean, I think that for me, like, it would be, America does it, I think, better than any other country, is allowing people to live side by side, even if they don't agree with it. Like, there's an ability to live side by side. I think in other countries, a lot of, specifically like Israel and Palestine, walls will go up, borders will go up, like things will happen, where I think that in the US, overall, like, I think people can really coexist. Like, if you go to a Starbucks, for example, all colors and shapes and sizes and religions and backgrounds, whatever, and people can generally coexist. Like, when I had lunch at USC and seeing all these students of like different colors and backgrounds, like all there to study, there's like a level of like you can kind of coexist. And I think that like Europe and the US do that really brilliantly. And I think that other countries, like, they can definitely adopt that from other countries. Yeah, I don't know what you guys think about it.
That's a good starting point. I mean, a real advanced country like Japan has tremendous difficulty with, I mean, they can employ maybe foreign workers and stuff, and they know what is civilized and gracious and polite, but the society there, has a lot of trouble with anyone. If the American comes as a minority, like a black soldier or sailor, Marine stationed there, they're not treated. Maybe they'll be respectful that they're American, but there's a lot of bias and stuff built into the mindset in Japan, and even towards different Asian cultures. And then in Europe, like you mentioned, we're better at it. I mean, we were the first really doing it. Europe's more copying us and trying to say, okay, we want to have that kind of a liberal society, but you're going to get, if it's in Germany, you're going to get marches and demonstrations that can get real ugly. Sure. And in places like England, we're very close to, but their government policies and their liberal parties would be more aligned with like here life in the U.S. But there's a lot of friction, and immigrants come. Well, even in the Queen movie, Bohemian Rhapsody, it shows it's difficulty. Freddie Mercury going through just as with an affluent father and mother and everything, just working and going to school there in England. I mean, I'm sure, I know you've gone through things here in the U.S., but it's on a different level. I mean,
in London, it's like more segregated. Like the neighborhoods are like all the Pakistani people live here, and New York tends to have that a little stronger than I think LA. LA has that a little bit, but I think in the East Coast it's a lot more like you're just like, oh my God, this is Chinatown, this is Koreatown, this is the Upper East Side. Like you could immediately tell that colors shift and energy, and because it's New York, everyone kind of mixes. But I think that LA does that it still has like a Koreatown and Chinatown and all that, but it's not as segregated. People can mix in and out of neighborhoods, and I think that like if you're in Brentwood, it's not really shocking to see a successful Asian or Black daughter that lives there. So it's not like something that's going to be like, oh my God, it's like a unicorn. So it's like, like where I think like in Orange County, like I was at a restaurant for 6 hours and not a person of color watched it. So I think that like depending on what neighborhood you're in, it's going to definitely kind of mimic that. And I think the U.S. in general does a really good job.
Like here, like I could like in terms of opportunity,
Yeah.
Opportunity is here. Like we're a country where like you can go from rags to riches to
Totally
rich here. And I think like the one thing I saw a lot of my friends back home in Baltimore, I'm like, you don't like, no one's telling you you have to live here for the rest of your life. Like, you can move, like you can move to a better place. Like I think the opportunity is here. I think a lot of people don't understand is like if the jobs aren't here, then go somewhere else. Like, but there's as a whole, as a country, like we have a lot of opportunity. It might not be in your specific neighborhood or your specific city, but if you want, like you want to be in film, you come to LA or Atlanta, like the opportunities for whatever you want to do is here. Like whatever business you want to be a part of, or whatever you want to do as a living, create, you can do it here.
I don't know your hometown, but I would say there's probably limited number of jobs. Like you have to work at there's like a factory, right? And then like other jobs. It's limited. Like you can go there and be like, well, I guess you could, but there's more opportunity here if you want to, let's say, a graphic designer or an illustrator or whatever. Like there's more opportunity for creativity.
Right. Okay, so that's a good openness and all that of America. What's something we have to adopt?
I think that if you go to if you're traveling to any other country, if you start, once you get a chance to start talking, minus language varies. When someone speaks English, you can talk to, and you're right on the train, or you're at a restaurant. I mean, a lot of other countries are more aware of what's going on in the world, and they have a better sense of like their own history and like the issues all around the planet. And Americans tend to be very, very isolationist in a lot of thinking. But you know, I was also in communist China, and there's tremendous hurdles for people growing up there to really understand outside of China, unless they're in Hong Kong or unless they have family working here, or they've gone to college here or something. They're so we're not. The American public's not the least educated or the least knowledgeable compared to some other countries, but we could have a lot more interest and knowledge, like some of us do here in this room. But if you probably have friends you talk to that
don't even have a passport. I have friends that have
or don't even know where to find on the map. You know, if something happens, like an earthquake in, right. So that some of that we could improve through our education and through media coverage. That there could be a more international element to what we talk about and learn about in the country.
Countries, especially European countries, tend to have like 4 solid parties. I mean, sometimes it comes down to 1, 2, but it's usually more than 2. It's definitely more than 1.
And the 1-2 change.
Yeah, they change.
Decades.
Right. It's just, I mean, our Constitution is designed to have different perspectives at play. Like the checks and balances work best when it's like Minnesota is representing Minnesota, California is representing California, Massachusetts is representing that, or Maryland, sorry. Yeah. Right, Maryland, Baltimore, my bad. Like they represent their own ideas, and like having the 2-party split is creating an extra division in our country, and we need to diversify our political parties like we are as people.
And travel to those other states.
Yeah.
Like, I've been to the South. Like I've been to other states in this country, Texas. Like I think it's so important. A lot of times, California, New York, or something, there's just 2 coasts, and in the middle, just nothing. And I'm like, you need to go to Florida. You need to understand. And it's not about going there and gawking and criticizing and trying to judge the way that people live. If you go in the South, you have to also understand how the culture works. If you're in Texas, there are going to be offhanded racist remarks, and you have to just understand that is systemic, and that's they're older. You have to give people some breaks. And I think Americans are also very quick to judge, especially if they live in the coast. They have this elitist attitude, and I think that's something that we need to get rid of, that elitist attitude. Like, for example, if you look at other countries like Singapore, Korea, like Seoul, they're so advanced, and they don't have that elitist attitude. Like, they are an advanced culture because that's how they're built. And I think that the U.S. can benefit from adopting some of this, instead of saying like, oh, you can't go to Singapore, you can't even chew gum, and like always criticizing other countries and kind of policing it. Where I'm like, we have so many issues here, like homelessness, like guns, gangs, but we are loved to say like, oh, the Middle East, like, oh, like we need to go save China, like if they don't take care of their whatever. Like it's like we have to kind of like, I think that's something we have to adopt from other countries, to stay in our borders. Like travel in the country, like for example, a lot of Europeans, a lot of Australians get a year to travel. I've met so many like young travelers in LA that are like just 19, traveling by themselves, like going around. An American would never do that. They learn how to do laundry when they're 19. It's like that is not going to get you world skills. Like of course that's important, but you have to also like I think that's something that we need to adopt from other countries is kicking our children out of the nest earlier, giving them education, like not only sex education, but like just everything, like just teaching them how to be street smart instead of just book smart.
Singapore has a really good education system that would probably be seen as very harsh by a lot of Americans, but
It's kind of British teaching.
yeah, it's very regimented and hardcore. But I mean,
It's 14 hours of school.
Yeah, their school
school
scores are through the roof, and but I mean, in general, our education system is something we need to overhaul because whatever we're doing isn't working.
Well, they pay their teachers really well.
Yeah.
Teachers get really paid really well. And that makes you show up and say, like my cousin is a superintendent at a school and she has to buy her kids supplies.
Also,
And that's in California.
education, life skills. It's like,
Right.
Yeah.
it's like something like I don't think you need calculus for
Agreed.
like
Agreed.
it's like
It should be intro to calculus or something. It
I
shouldn't be.
didn't take any cooking or
Yeah, home ec is one of the first things they got cut.
It got cut. It was dangerous. But I'm like, then don't do the woodworking.
I live
Yeah.
in home. Like
I don't know.
that's the other 8 hours like
I
they're
agree.
not sleeping.
Or taxes, like they should teach kids how to do taxes.
Yeah.
I have yet to really understand taxes. Like there are so many things. Like I even went to business school and I still struggle with like debts and credits and
Well, we have
teach
some
that
of
stuff. Or paying your electric bill, right? Like there's
Yeah.
so many like things you could teach kids, like money management. Like I didn't learn. Like a lot of people go to college and they become broke, right? Like and teach people that in high school.
and that's where the extra hours of education come.
More
classes.
There you go.
More classes.
Totally.
You bring up a lot of international countries in this comparison. So I guess let's go through a few countries, and if you could comment on, let's narrow it down to just today, President Trump or the American administration now, and how we deal with other countries, what your viewpoints are. And so we'll start with China. Do you agree, disagree on the trade war, but then also just, let's say China's rising position where they're kind of the only other superpower in the world?
I mean, tariffs are horrible. It's crushing our farmers in many ways. China is the new Russia, and they are our biggest competitor. And it's like, are we tariffing them because of inhumane treatment of other people? I don't know if that's the reason. I think it's reasons based on like greed. Like and it's hurting us. It's not helping us in any way, the trade war with China. The best way to conquer China is to become best friends with China and keep the exchange up. I mean, the prices on solar panels are going up, and that's something that we really should be investing in. And like individuals need to be investing in that. Like if you believe in the green world, make your house a green house. But then there's financial barriers that us in this room, I'm assuming are lower income, like
Maybe like a good return, maybe in the long term, but it's hard to put that initial investment.
right.
look at it was a lot of these towns that's one of the main states in Pennsylvania and Western India was like he went to coal towns and were like, hey, like that's all you know how to do is make like your grandpappy was a coal miner, your daddy was a coal miner, and you're a coal miner, and it's like to them that's all they know how to do. They don't have any other education. That's all they know how to do. And if you take, and I'm not saying grow coal or not, but if you take coal away from them, the whole town's dead, done.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do? Like, yeah.
There could be other opportunities though for them too. Like I think there's like a level of like I understand that, but at the same time, like we're not gonna ever progress with them. That for coal miners, then their son's gonna be a coal miner, and it's never gonna like. I think I'm thinking from a climate change perspective. Then that town maybe doesn't need to exist, which is kind of hard.
It can be
Right.
built up. And
Right. If they become maybe like a solar, like there's that company solar tech or whatever it's called. Solar tech, or like it's like a company that does basically like, it's kind of like a pyramid setup where like basically you're like a seller of solar panels and then you get money. It's kind of like not a pyramid scheme, but it's similar to that. And I have a friend involved, and what they do is they help a lot of engineers and coal miners then do that. So start selling like solar panels, but you have to want to do that.
When you were commenting about the tariffs hurting us in terms of economic pain in industries and then passed on to consumer, I understand what you're saying, but you have to, in dealing with international issues like trade with China, you have to have a long-term game plan. So like, let's say we go through a couple years of difficult price increases and disruptions of supply lines and stuff. But what I like about Trump's approach to this is that a typical American politician is going to say, okay, I want every one of my constituents and the population to have it the easiest. Let's go the easiest route, and I can keep trade open with China, and we have a deficit, and they could be stealing technology, and they ignoring copyright rules and hurting our businesses, but it'll just keep everyone happy. And Trump's position on so many areas, sometimes you can criticize him, is that he's willing to be unpopular. He's willing to take a stand that a traditional politician is going to be too scared to try to take a position, too controversial, and he's not doing it for personal gain. He's not doing it because he thinks, some Chinese company ripped me off. He's thinking about, as president, what would be if I treated the United States like a business, and for 4 years or 8 years I own this, or I'm the CEO of this business. What can I accomplish for the country? That's a very patriotic view for Trump to be following. He has an end goal that he's trying to accomplish.
But I mean, tariffs, we get rid of most tariffs because in the long run it didn't create a better economy for America. Like,
what if a trading partner is not following the rules that were agreed to when tariffs were dropped? You have to have a fallback position.
I haven't delved into it enough to know how many rules China has to break.
It's rampant. It's a one-party system.
Culture in China and the Middle East is a lot of like payment to get things done. Like to this day, like if you get a ticket in the Middle East, you can pay the officer off. There's a lot of cultural stuff that Americans just don't take the time to learn. And that's Trump. He's going in there like a bull in a china shop and trying to shake the Japanese prime minister's hand, looking him in the eye, touching him. It's like, this is not the culture. Like the culture is very respectful. And Middle Eastern culture, they don't understand, or Chinese culture, like I said, they do payments. They don't understand that you're going into these companies and saying, no, this is illegal now. And it's like, this is not how these countries work. They're not going to follow the rules. You have to find a more, like a profitable way for them to want to change. Because they're like, we've been doing this for thousands of years. What does America know? I've heard a lot of Middle Easterns say, America's been around for 250 years. What do you know? And that's you know what I mean?
In terms of China, I've read news articles that they're being very tough in a lot of their responses right now. And they're actually, I think, particularly targeting some geographic areas, some industries where they know that's where a lot of people last time around voted for Trump. And they're being very calculated in creating some economic pain for us right now. But if perhaps Donald Trump won re-election, I've read analysis that they would go to the negotiating table with him. That they're game playing it, and it may be just like with North Korea that he in a few years he might be able to get some positive results, and we could all end up with better prices and better sales of American products.
China, the thing is, they also have investment on the ground. There's a lot of, I've worked in real estate, a lot of the properties, especially in the Wilshire Corridor, are all owned by Chinese investors. Yeah. They have a lot of liquid assets in the United States, and they're very aware of that. Like, because for China, a lot of it's bought online. Human life in China, like, there was a study done. There's I think it's 500 Chinese life for one American life. That's a number. Like, they also have Bangladeshi life. Someone did a categorization of how much human life means to a country. In China, it's a bottom line. Like I said, I went to that factory, 2,000 people died. It's let's move on to the next tour. That's a very cultural thing. like I've seen people in the street that are dead. Like it's a really busy, lots going on, and I think Americans cannot wrap their, and you said you've been there, but a lot of Americans haven't, and they can't wrap their minds around a culture that if there is 3 lanes, it's now 6. And if you understand the way people drive says a lot about their government. So I think it's very important to understand that, and for a lot of Americans, it's all rule-based and constitutional. That shit goes out the window. In China, in the Middle
We
East.
have an influence. So I mean, like if you look at the Hong Kong protests, their education and their access to media is much greater there. But I mean, their protesters there are proud to display an American flag or voice a position on rights and what they want the government to be like. Like
Hong Kong is like fancy China. So Hong Kong is like, that's not really an example of mainland China because China rejects Hong Kong. It's not like it rejects Taiwan. And so when the mainland China is very different than Taiwan or Hong Kong because Taiwan is very LGBTQ friendly and so is Hong Kong, and they're more open-minded. A lot of China, like when I was in Beijing, Tiananmen Square, it's like very patrolled. It's like security. You are a tourist, they are watching, you're being patrolled. Like things, there's no Facebook. I mean, things are very like, communist. Yeah, it is. And listen, for them, it's worked for thousands of years. And it's hard to go into a government and say, it did.
For 75 years.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I'm just saying they're culturally, though, they've been doing this government for thousands. So whatever that government was in play, there is a level of, in these countries, and I'm speaking from like experience, there's a bit of elitism. Like, why is a 250-year-old country telling us what to do? Coming in policing, and a lot of what America does, they come in, we kill off the top guy, get rid of him, put in a figurehead, and then leave when we feel like it, and we leave a country dilapidated. So
beat up the bully 250 years ago and became the bully.
Well, yeah,
That's why we're gonna go do that.
of course. And again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, because we do a lot of good. We save people, like, there's a lot of good that comes from that, but I think that there's also a level of, like, the only reason I'm mentioning is like, to consider, because I think a lot of times with government, it's always like tariffs, and let's input this, and let's, like, put, like, no more greenhouse gases being used here, and it's like, countries don't care. Like, they're gonna burn the rainforest when they feel like it. It's Brazil, they don't really give a shit. Like, they're gonna do it, and I'm not saying don't put the tariffs, I'm just saying it's gonna take, it's like this generation above has to die out before people start, like, that whole generation has to go before things start to make a shift.
But then that would say that the U.S. should keep pushing on if we know something's right, we should keep voicing that and pushing for it. And if we have to suffer some, discomfort and pain to, take some positions, like in the Cold War, we, like we were talking about, we almost, maybe lost our whole country maybe at one point in the Cold War. But you have to, if you believe that something's right as a country, you should stand up for it and try to keep pressure on.
I agree with that, but I think you also have to speak to people where they're at, and I think that our government, they use the same way of speaking to everyone. The way I speak to you, and we're strangers until a couple hours ago, I speak to you all very differently. And that's understanding how you speak to people is we go where they're at. Like,
That's reading the room.
that's reading the room. And I think that America as a country and our government system, our president now, doesn't read the room. We use the same approach, which is like, bootstraps, get up, let's go. It's like when someone's depressed and someone's like, get up, exercise, go to work. It's like, it doesn't work that way. And I think we don't understand how other governments work. And we try to give the same in-your-face approach to every country. And most countries are on the defensive, and they're like, I don't want to hear that. Like, and so I think we have to, I'm not saying don't stand for what you believe in, but also understand where that person's at.
Like you're saying, like Trump is trying to run it like business. So if anything else, he's like, I can just run this country as a business.
Like a corporation, yeah.
Like a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's he's just trying to be like, hey, I don't think he understands their culture. He's like, they agreed to something in a business, you agree to something, and you don't, you either sue them or you
Exactly. There's a contract, you sign it, and everyone gets fucked and gets money.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, totally.
Rockefeller turned the gas off on an entire area just to bleed out his competition.
Of course.
So I mean, there are short-term losses for long-term gains in business, but like when it's a federal level government doing it, that you're hurting a lot of individuals in a lot of bad ways right now.
Mhm.
And when you're just calculating
That's a good example.
monetary loss as a business owner, monetary loss is easy to find. I'll lose $200,000 a day to make $1 million later. But when it's like families being devastated, it's a lot harsher to calculate political issues just like a businessman, because there is a difference between business classes and political science classes, because they're two different things. And if in 2-3 years we're now taking down China and they're everything's back to normal, like we're selling more of everything that we want to be and it's panned out, I might have a little more positive attitude about it. But right now in the short run, it hurts to see it happen. So, but I do really appreciate the idea that in 2-3 years we might see a lot of benefits. But if they're not there in 2-3 years, when do we abandon it as a bad idea?
Yeah, yeah, and you
So,
have to take
and
the
that's
law.
some things the government fails to do a lot of times. Like, well, we're going to try this out.
Again,
Well, it's failing, so we're going to keep doing it. Maybe if we put more money into it, it'll fail less. It's failing more, but
well, it's insane.
So,
That's what it is.
yeah. Yeah.
Iraq war. There's a lot of them. Like you just keep, it's like you keep hitting your head against the wall and you hope that you're going to get a different result.
During freedom in Afghanistan, it's just devastating. We use this tactic to bring Russia to their knees. We armed Afghanis to fight the Russians. The Russians were putting all that money in there because there's so many resources in Afghanistan that we just want. And so when they failed, we now had, and they abandoned the program. It's like, well, maybe we could do it. Right. But it's like, where are we at? 17 years later, and we haven't made any gains really. Like every game we make, we lose, and it's like, dude,
What is a gain? Financial gain?
I'm saying like
Right.
just like in the war, as far as like controlling territory and making sure women and children have a good education. Right. I mean, the Taliban is doing horrible things over there.
Oh, of course.
When we abandon an area, they come in and reinstate Taliban law, and it's not a good thing.
Well, when the Taliban was there, like speaking from my friends being Afghani, that there is a lot with the Taliban. It was a lot of devastation, but it was also more predictable.
Yeah, more predictable.
Where like people knew if you stayed politically out of stuff, like you were less likely to get affected. But when the government goes by and drops a bunch of bombs at once in 45, gives people 45 minutes to get out, and I have a lot of people like, why'd they leave? Where are they going to go? The mountains? With children? I mean, there's not a lot that you, so I think Americans speak from a place of privilege, and I'm American. I'm not going to say I'm not. I was born here, but there's a level of me also living in another country that I understood that you speak from a strong place of privilege. So like there was a story recently with about an African woman walking to the well and getting raped along the way. And of course, a lot of Republican pundits spoke up as well. Then they should take a different route. It's dangerous. Well, what you're speaking from is a place of privilege. You're not understanding that there are not 100 routes to one well.
Yeah.
So you speaking, it's like not productive, and I think a lot of Americans speak from a place of privilege. And if we can just switch the conversation. But, right. But they don't want to learn. That's the difference. There's no excuse for lack of knowledge. I'm sorry, there's no lack. That's not an excuse. It's everywhere. It's on your fingertips. Twitter. You can get onto anything. Within 10 minutes, I can tell you all the news that's happening everywhere in the world on my Twitter account. So I think the lack of, I sympathize with people that don't, but there's a level of like, you don't want to learn. Yeah. You don't want to, like, every time I try to talk to people that are on the right, they just shut me down. They're like, no, I don't want to hear it too much. Like, it's like, that's not productive. We're never going to move forward then. Like, we're just going to be stuck in like kind of status quo. I get it. Even if you can't afford it, just get a passport just to like prepare yourself for an opportunity. Like, I'm not going to pretend that traveling is cheap. Like, I get it. It can be expensive and not everyone can afford it. But I think it's so important, like, even if you can just drive to Baja, like, just to see, like, how someone else is living and they don't have, like, Postmates and Uber and access to everything and healthcare and, like, not everything's at your fingertip. And, like, people are not bored because they don't have time to be bored because they have to pay their families and feed their families. Like, I think that, like, just even if you, like, when I went to India, I was like, I mean, there's people, like, children on the street. I'm like, how are no one saving them? It's like, that's just not, that's different culture. Like, it's not we're not white saviors. Like, you're not there to save that you're just there to be a part of the culture. It's a hard thing to look at them as Americans. We want to save everyone, like, and you just unfortunately, like, as you become an adult, you realize you can't save everyone.
And
And
they want
that's it.
to say it in different ways.
Mhm.
That won't translate well or
Yes.
be offensive or just
Exactly.
be what's the word, like approaching, almost like that.
A
Like,
lot of encouragement.
so our definition of saving is different
It is.
depending on belief.
No, you're so right. And even during the Iraq War too, like a lot of the army men brought pornography and alcohol into like the country, and they were like, "No, we need to enjoy it. Like, you need to drink, you need to do pornography," and like forcing it on people as a way to save them. But that's not Middle Eastern culture, like Muslim. That's not part of it. And listen, do I drink and watch porn? Yes. But like that's me. But like but you have to understand that that's not culture. You don't get to bring that in and force people as a way to saving them. Or like even in France when they outlawed hijab headscarves, they were whipping it off people's heads. That's not freedom.
No.
Because if someone feels safe, like my mom wears a headscarf, she likes, and listen, she's wearing Chanel Hermes, like it's nice. Like she's looking fashionable. Like it is not something that she's doing. No one's forcing her to do it. And I think there's a level of this idea that as Americans, we're always trying to like save people and like if we talk about like encroachment, you don't need to remove someone's headscarf. If they're comfortable wearing that, like you have to kind of just like coexist.
Yeah, and
But the government's like, yeah, no, right? The governments get involved and they're like, no, we're saving people and like we're allowing people to be free. But freedom, for some people, wearing a bathing suit is not freedom; it's shackles. So it's just perspective.
I think Iraq is a very good example of how we intervene to save people and then we create a mess. Like I was there in 2004 and the people were very happy that we were there. We got rid of Saddam Hussein, who did horrible things to the people. I mean, he'd come into little villages and take the women and go back to and rape farmers' daughters. And if they fought, you ended up in a jail. Like if I tried to stop him from taking my daughters, I'd end up in like isolation.
He killed his own son. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, Saddam Hussein was a horrible person. So we went in to save the people, got rid of Saddam Hussein, who we actually put in power. But that's a different story to fight Iran. But
and we like to put people in and then kill.
Yeah, but like I remember in like 2009, it was like ISIS was taking over places in northern Iraq, and that's the part that I was securing personally, and it sort of made me cry because it was like, because I was like, damn, like
All your work.
all of the work is gone. It didn't make it better. Like I was proud at the time because I saw the people being happy we were there.
Right.
But then like 10 years, like 5 years later, we don't have the same troop influence everywhere, and like ISIS just took it all down, and it was just like.
But where did ISIS come from? Because
Yeah.
the power vacuum. Like,
Well, right.
America goes in, they get rid of things, and then they're like, where
Well,
did they come from? And
I
it's like,
think it was so like Obama really was great at saying good words, like we're going to liberate and make things nice and peaceful. But when you think about what he was saying is, well, I'm going to have to go in and take out these evil people. And how do we do that? With covert operations, by training people to uprise. And then that's where ISIS came from, is our own wanting to take out Syria without actually going in, because Obama ran on peace and you can't do a direct attack like Bush did. But the powers to be in our country wanted it to happen, and that's what happened was with these covert things, and we really did create ISIS. And so that made it even harder for me to see that our own little rebellious group just undid every good thing we were trying to do in Iraq.
which is, I mean, the intention is always good. But I have a question. You said that in 2004, the people in Iraq were like happy. Like, what are we basing that happiness on?
Just the workers that were on base were very cordial and nice.
This is Iraqi.
Yeah, this is
Okay,
Iraqi.
okay.
When I'm driving through the towns, people are looking at us with like, all right, you're smiling, they're there. And I have buddies that have been to many tours, and I was only in the one. They were there in 2006. And like, people aren't smiling at us anymore. You know what I mean? Like
People are
we
scared
overstayed our
too.
welcome because you know, like we came to liberate them from a tyrant in theory or whatever.
Sure.
And we got rid of the
meat
tyrant.
burned a lot of people.
But we didn't bring them a better government. Like we didn't give them like we didn't give them the government that our founding fathers gave us. You know,
100%.
like they gave us a great gift, and it's still working.
Well, they're coming into your house and killing the
Yeah.
breadwinner, and then
Right.
being like, "Okay, good luck. Like,
But
pay
then,
your
like,
rent. Like,
then we
eat."
put up our own puppet government and they sent us out right through it. Because all of a sudden, like this puppet government is making all these trades that are bad for Iraq, you know, and they see it, and then it just adds to the number of people willing to fight the Americans that are there. I mean, I know if they came to our backyard, we'd be fighting them. I remember there was like a young kid that was running around with an AK-15, probably about 15, and we took him out. And I just remember looking at him going, man, if I was 15, some like other country attacked mine, that would be me right there. You know, like just, I mean, there's pride.
Sympathy for some of our enemies,
Yeah.
just because they did.
But a 15-year-old's not an enemy.
Yeah, they
See,
are.
that's the
though.
thing. Like, when
They
you
are.
say, no.
But
You
You
go
know-
into a country. No. You go into a country and you kill everyone's like their entire family, and they become a suicide bomber. Americans, again, this is speaking from a place of privilege, love to say the enemy. That's what you would do too.
Yeah.
If your entire country, like your entire life, was wiped out in 45 minutes, and now you want me to be a better person, a bigger person? There's no way. Like it's so irrational to think like. And I sympathize with what you're saying about the 15-year-old. Like, but I get it. But who put that gun in his hand?
Right.
That's who came there
That's exactly what I was saying.
and which is what you were saying. But enemy, I think that kind of like I don't think that's a right word.
From a soldier's perspective, I didn't want to point a gun at you. But I know what you're saying in a philosophical
right.
enemy.
Again, I've never been to war. I've never been a soldier, so I can't really sympathize with that side of it. But what I can sympathize with is that like you are choosing to go to war, and they are not choosing to be in a war.
Yeah, they're just.
That's a very different thing.
And they're
So that's
children.
a-
And
yeah,
they're not
yeah.
15-year-olds. They're children.
Yeah.
They're not adults. They're growing.
There's definitely a lot of adults picking up guns too.
I'm sure there are.
One.
I mean, there are adults like picking up guns in South Central.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's when you have to protect yourself, like you have to protect yourself, and I think a lot of it is your circumstances. And again, I just hate to keep going back to the same thing, but I think it speaks from a place of privilege, like with Americans specifically. And I have the same privilege myself. And so I definitely had to check myself. Because a lot of times I'm like, well, then just figure your country out. Like when I see news about other countries, I'm like, it's not easy. If it was easy, we would have figured out our systemic racism. We would have figured out our misogynistic ways. We would have supported gay people a long time ago. I mean, so I think it's just at the end of the day, like, we're not really perfect. But it's hard when you have a president that says they're perfect constantly. So I think that's another issue. That's another issue. So I'm not saying I'm doing everything perfectly. Is kind of like
Best ever.
yeah, best ever, right? So
We'll pause
okay.
there. No, it's great. So we can take like a 10-minute break.
Okay. Yeah, right. See what's going on in the world. Oh, I've been to Egypt. I love Egypt. It's so random. There's like pyramids and there's like a nightclub. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
That's amazing.
Like at night they have like a techno show like on the pyramids, and it's like dun dun dun. I'm like, what is going on? Like it's clearly like for tourists. It's just so funny. It's really fun.
All right, guys, it's been fun.
Nice to meet you. See you later.
Will, right?
Bye, Will. Nice to meet you. Thank you for chatting. Sorry if we butted heads, but it was nice.
Like, I really want people to choose.
I appreciate that. No, it's small semantics that sets people off.
Yeah, and that's like you're saying, not one of the main parties. So I think that's valid.
Libertarian kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of rides the line a little bit. You're a little bit in the middle, right?
And I think Jensen well said it best. We want to keep the government out of our pocketbook, which is
Conservative, but then
But we
also-
want to keep the government out of our bedrooms so you guys can do whatever the fuck you guys do, and I can do whatever the fuck I do, and you know.
Yeah, sometimes I like to be in other bedrooms. That's great.
You said the restroom was down the hall, right?
There's like two of them, but
For the for the name.
yeah, I think
I know it's the best way. If you ever get to stay longer, it's like so
Or 2 months more, you never know.
good. I like that.
I have money, I'm just
I know, right? That's like the goal. I don't know, I just like being in different, you just get such a perspective. And you get to slow down. You know? And the good thing is LA has such good food, but Thailand is like, I think that should, it's not very expensive. Like, and obviously getting there is expensive, but once you get there, it's like super cheap. And their street food is amazing because it tastes like Thai food here. Like it's because the Thai food here is not really Americanized, so it's like literally you go, it's like Chinese food's so different in China. It's like disgusting. I was like I could not get it. Mm-hmm.
traditional Chinese food. Or right before we left, we were at LAX. Like, gosh, some Panda Express before we go. Least Chinese.
The least Chinese. I mean, it's not that the food's so bad. It's just the presentation. It's like an entire bird's nest fried. I'm like that's so with the bird in it. I'm like, I can't eat this. Like feet, like chicken feet. Did you have chicken feet and like?
It was one of those.
Stuff was all.
Like the first time we had a buffet and like.
That's okay. The buffet was fine.
Yeah. It was like where you just like very traditional Chinese.
Like he ordered everything.
Yeah, and like we just they kept bringing stuff. The one thing I'll not forget though, like we had this rice wine and they kept pouring it. It's like, no, I don't want to get drunk. Yeah, they just kept pouring it, like kept pouring it, because there would be servers that kept pouring it every time your glass.
Because if it's empty, they'll fill it. Right?
They'll fill it. They're like, okay, stop.
Yeah, stop! I don't want to get drunk. Did you have any? Did you have like this one dish with a bunch of bones? It was like literally just bones. It was so gross. I was like, I can't eat this. And like, I was with my dad's business partner, so I had to eat everything. It's like really disrespectful. And I was like,
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
What's wrong? What's wrong? And then you go to this restaurant, they have all these aquariums, and you have to pick the fish, and they put it in bags. And I'm like, oh no, I'm making friends with the fish. I'm like, I don't need to see this. I'm not a vegetarian, but that's too much. Like it's no joke. Mm-hmm. I mean, the good thing is, it's fresh. So what part of town do you live in? Oh, nice. Okay, where's Sun Valley? Oh, no, okay. Oh. Oh, whoa. Oh, damn. Truckers get paid well. Nice. Would you do the Teamster thing, like, then you could be around entertainment? Is that what you're...
Yeah.
Okay.
I realized, like, yeah, Teamster would be, like, just a good backup plan of, like, getting in the union and trying to...
Oh, you're in part of the union. Oh, okay. What union is it? Transportation? Or is it SAG? Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was... Okay.
Realize, if you want to make money doing, like, production or freelance,
You have to be union, right?
SAG, because, like, I was working on a commercial, like, a couple years ago, and the extras, like, my boss had me do the math. He was like, how much these extras, because they were SAG extras, they made, like, $4,000 in 2 days. Because, like, because a lot of commercials are...
It's line? Oh my god. Like, my friend SAG extra, and she got, like, one line, and it's, like, I think $10,000. Could make a lot of money. And then if you're on, like, one of my friends was also in the Emmy commercial, got $100,000. Like, it was, like, during the Emmy commercial, and, like, he got paid really well.
That's like writing is awesome.
Yeah? Like what, teleplays or like you want to write movies? Nice. Oh, nice. Awesome.
Like I want to write a movie about scamming, and he was like, okay, so what's like most scam, like the biggest country? Do you think like Kenya, like West Africa?
Right, where you get all the
but you looked it up. Indonesia is the biggest for scamming. They're the biggest country for scamming. Most people do not know.
That would be Nigeria. Like, would you get over the Bank of Nigeria email?
You think, but Indonesia's the biggest.
I think Indonesia, recently they got in something where you have to get like a plane ticket for an Indonesian prime minister or some shit, and a lot of people did it. Some lady like went to the airport to pick them up, and I'm like, girl, like, and first of all, if someone sends me an email and they're like, get me a first, I'm like, you're going to Coach. Why would I buy a first class ticket? Like, fuck you. I mean, it's creepy.
Me? No. I'm just, my family's more German, Russian, places, different countries. But I mean, I had a grandfather who was at one point monk in the Catholic Church. So it's just part of it's part of how, from my mom's side of the family, it's part of how I was raised. So that's why.
I'm curious, ask ones. Like, do you have to be like?
Oh, no. I mean, they would definitely welcome visitors to come to mass. I mean, you might, but like the confession communion is part of more being in the church. But I mean, you definitely could be part of part of the whole. You don't have to just spectate. You could be part of it.
That's like one of my things I'm very into history, and I just want to like get to know like the whole history of the church, because I think a lot of the church is going towards, even like I grew up in the Presbyterian, but I've been attending a lot of like non-denominational churches, just because I feel like that was the more comfortable. I mean, I think it was more just to like the more you look at like the Book of Acts and like the early church, it's kind of like very
just forming and talking and worshiping.
Yeah, it's like to be like just a follower of Christ is just to say like you're my Lord and that's it. Like you don't even have to go to a church. Like you can be just a Christian as long as you believe in Jesus Christ. Right. I think there's like all the different churches like have their own traditions and they have two standards that are different than them.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Protestant movements in Europe, were Luther was a Catholic.
Yeah.
He was more committed Catholic probably than a lot of the hierarchy of the church at the time. So I'm sure he saw everything he was doing is what the whole church should be like.
Yeah.
And it's just been broke off. A different movement.
I mean, like,
but yeah,
don't make it every other word.
No, I won't. I even wanted to ask.
Oh, no, it's totally real.
But something you say that.
Like I was taking this class about like the history and formation of the Bible,
right?
How like King James is like one of my historical figures that I like, just like how he is very passionate about the Bible and the translation of it,
right? And making English.
Yeah, and just I think like that was one of the big things too, was just being like be able to read it for yourself. Like, this is what I lot of people, yeah, like, because the Bible was in Latin from, what was it, like 400 to 1500?
Right. Originally, I guess the first translations would be probably Greek,
Yeah, yeah.
and then,
New
but
Testament,
Latin, right?
and the Old Testament obviously was the Hebrew.
And it got into a standard Latin
Yeah.
text, and then James the First, who did the Bible, but Charles the First was really Catholic leaning, and it was part of the English Civil War.
Yeah.
Kind of was. Yeah, there's Catholic religion has been an important part of English history. Both sides, both as the authoritarian position, and also as a later as a kind of a rebellion position.
Yeah. I want to go to one of my places I want to go to is
Oh, Vatican Coin. Oh yeah, I've been there. Yeah, I mean that you don't even have to be Christian at all to see, have tremendous. It's just the beauty of the art alone.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like it's its own country. It's
oh yeah,
its own country.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like the Pope is considered like the king.
He's the
leader.
Yeah, the sovereign of that little city state. That's true.
It's all like how many miles?
If you don't mind changing.
Oh yeah,
the thing, good. No, you guys are good there. Just since we only have 4 now.
Okay.
French is like so.
Margaret of the diabetes.
That year when you guys.
Yeah.
I love that phrase. It's so funny. People will pay extra for that shit.
So for this next one, it's sort of it's an individual one, but also a consensus one a little bit. What would the parties in 2019, Republican, Democrat, whatever you would identify with, whichever one of them more, what would it take for the opposing party to win you over? In regards to realism, like they're not going to just drop all of their tenants, but what would it take for the other side to convince you, even just for one election? What would it take if there was 2 candidates in 2020? What would it take to get on that platform? Get you to agree to that platform?
Kyle would have to freeze over. I'm joking. So I voted Democrat in the last election and the 4 years before that. I think this year when I voted in the primary and also in the kind of the city level with all the different props and ordinances and all that, I was the most educated I've ever been. When I voted, it was very much like we're a Democrat family, we vote Democrat. I was just kind of doing it with blinders on. But this year I'm very educated and I'm very ready to know everything and kind of really going in kind of a more eyes wide open kind of energy. So that's good. And I think whoever you vote for, you should really go in that with that energy. And then if it came to convincing me to be Republican, I think honestly I would focus on the financial aspect of being a Republican. I would really focus on the business. They're so heavily focused on entrepreneurs. They really give you a lot of opportunities to run your own business and all of that. So I think when it comes to financial, they do a really good job, but I think everything else, from a human interest point of view, I just can't. Maybe if there was no Trump, I mean, even then, I don't know if I would still be swayed. Yeah, I mean, maybe if there was a woman running for president that was Republican, maybe I could start to understand and have but I think that person would really need to do really strategic caucuses, engage LGBTQ people. They really need to bring people of color in. They really have to make a case for me, a white straight man. I am not getting anywhere near that. So you have to come in, maybe a woman of color, possibly lesbian, bi, non-binary. Bring in. There has to be you have to be a very dynamic person. So it's kind of just something that's probably not happening.
One person that I actually because you have to be registered. I wasn't registered. I actually did vote for Bernie Sanders for the primary because I do agree with his the college and some of his economic. I don't think all of it will work, but I think some of the stuff like, he's actually the one that I think he could have beat Donald Trump. I truly believe that the Democrats' last election shot themselves in the foot. I think he would be the president right now if he had gone against Donald Trump. But they thought Hillary Clinton was the safe choice. Yeah. But yeah, I think from an economic standpoint, like I think that's one thing, like I do disagree with like the party. Like I think the minimum wage should be more than 15 because I know like I barely survived in Los Angeles minimum wage. So I think yeah. But economic standpoint.
I don't really have a party allegiance for the last like at least 8 years or some sort. For a while, I haven't really had a home. I don't feel in either party. The closest I read an opinion piece by Peggy Noonan maybe last year that comparing that the Democrat leaders or new officials that would be closest, she would compare closest to Donald Trump and the attitude and kind of the way they're approaching their jobs are some of these new representatives that are very much in the news. Ocasio-Cortez is one of them from somewhere in the country. There's Muslim representatives too that are they're in that group too, that she would put them as obviously not following Trump's policies or saying that they support Donald Trump, but in terms of attitude and willing to speak out and willing to take on the party that they're registered with. Peggy Noonan was saying that, you know, she sees these figures as the next wave of our political leaders in this country that are kind of following what Donald Trump has started.
They're a result of it. I don't know if he started that. I think they came out of being forced out, right? Because he was so anti-them and he spoke so harshly against them. So I think they came out of like him, which is a good byproduct. I don't know if it's what he started.
Okay, well, I mean, all right, I can take that point, but I mean, I see, for me, to be enthusiastic about the Democratic Party, I would need, like Bernie Sanders, but he's just an elderly statesman and he's kind of independent. He's not really, I don't think, even registered really Democrat. But young leaders of Democratic Party, if I saw them being willing to speak out against corruption that happened when Bill Clinton was president, against even a Democrat leader who would say that, yes, we're very upset if Donald Trump made a phone call to a foreign leader and was encouraging them to kind of intervene in our political process, but I am equally upset that Comey under the Obama administration submitted false information to create wiretapping of the Donald Trump campaign, because that was opposed to the party at the time in power, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. And so if I saw leaders from the Democratic Party really being able to address corruption and illegal activities and you know, across all bounds. Like, for instance, when it was mentioned that Jeffrey Epstein, or if that's the first name, is Jeffrey. So when, you know, we had him locked up in supposedly the most secure detention facility in New York City, our #1 city in our country, and he ends up mysteriously committing suicide, which he didn't commit suicide. You know, it shows that the.
But you said he did.
Well, the official government position is he did, and my official position is he didn't. And
so, you know,
I just want to make that clear. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, he did and he didn't, depending how you look at it. And that to me raises so many red flags about, you know, the way politics is done in this country, the way problems are covered up and not addressed. Okay, so Democrat leaders that were willing to address those type of topics, that was something I'd really respond to, and I thought that it was great in the last presidential election that there was one main political candidate in the Republican primaries that was willing to speak out against his own party, the mechanics of his own primaries taking place, of
the policies of the previous Republican president, of a very powerful family based in Texas that for decades had been involved with the CIA, but involved with certain political events in our country. And here was a Republican, quote unquote, willing to take them on and speak out. And I think a young Democrat, if they want to make that kind of an impression and when they want to say, okay, I'm willing to be controversial, okay, then can you speak out against anyone who was ever a Democrat, post-Civil War, and be willing to stand and take on that kind of heat, and then okay, then you are brave, and then you are willing to be controversial. It's not controversial for you to attack Donald Trump. He's in the opposite party.
For me, because I've never had any allegiance for any, no Republican, I've always been independent. I think that it all gets jumbled up in terms of history and even now. I think that, the Republican Party, for me, it's not, they don't do anything for me. Like, I'm atheist. It's a lot of belief, like it's a strong belief party. And then with the Democrats, I don't think that, I think that what they speak a lot of, it's very surface and not like, they don't delve into deep waters. They don't tread deep waters. They just kind of walk along the surface and don't. It's like, yeah, okay, all I'm hearing is nothing. But to be more specific, for me, a Republican they don't do enough. They won't do enough for me to win me over. A Democrat, in today's Democrat, because I know that they were the party of the KKK. And yeah, but right now they're the party of liberalism and acceptance. That's not even true to today. But because they are the lesser evil, I think they could focus more on like sex work, because sex work, I think, although it's the oldest job in the world,
like there's no respect for it.
Yeah, there's no respect for it, and they do a lot of what a lot of others won't do. And I think it's like the oil that runs the machine. So the unspoken one. I know it's such a random topic, but I think it's so unspoken in our circles.
Everyone people that do it, and the people at the top that are so judgmental are always caught with sex workers, from entertainers from Hugh Grant up to senators. I mean, people are getting caught with these sex workers, and it's so
it demeans
it demeans it, and it's kind of like in India they just decriminalize homosexuality, and I feel like in that country the way they see homosexuality in India is kind of how we see sex work here. It needs to be decriminalized. People are getting killed. There's no safety. There's no protection around it. It's like kind of telling people, no, don't have sex. It's the same thing. Don't use sex work. It's the same thing. People are still going to utilize that.
Exactly. And I think
so it's a conversation.
Because I have a lot of sex workers around me. I think that protecting them is a step in the right direction, and Democrats being so accepting and
I'm just saying they haven't gone to that issue yet. They haven't been willing to take on the heat.
They haven't, like the FOSTA, or what is the I don't remember the name, the acronym for that bill for sex workers and sex trafficking. I think people mistake that sex workers choose to do sex work, and it's just like a work that like anything else.
Being a telemarketer is just
yeah.
I mean, it's a very, that's what I always say, because it's the truth. It's like,
Yes, you guys a question.
yes,
So I don't know if you guys are aware, and Mike Pence was one of the guys that is the reason why it doesn't exist. I don't know if you guys remember the website Backpage.
Yes.
So that he was the one that signed that bill into law to make that website not exist, because he proved that that was one of the biggest sites for sex trafficking.
Yes, but not you, I'm sorry. But
sex trafficking is not sex work. That's different.
Exactly. It's something different. That's where I'm saying like
sex trafficking is like not choice, and then sex working is like you're doing it to pay your bills. And sex work can also be, I have a friend that's a dominatrix. There's no sexual intercourse, there's no sex engagement. It's people.
Like, what's club.
stripping,
Program. Trans. Yeah,
prostitution, you have sex for money. You strip, you said, what else?
like there's a lot of trans people that are in Hollywood that pay their rent that are sex workers on the street. They have no other opportunity to get jobs. And a lot of trans women that are getting murdered are also sex workers. But if there's some protection, some laws, they don't have to do it in the back alley in a car. They would be done in some safety. There would be some safety.
Like a business place.
Right. Or yeah. If you like, for example, if you went and killed your barista, like you go to jail. But if you're killing a sex worker, people are very much like, well, they're a prostitute. They're not real people. And I think that kind of goes back to the conversation about slavery that we were talking about. Sex workers are treated like property. A lot of porn stars are treated like property. Why would you do that? It's disgusting. It's not about judgment. It's that person is paying their bills. And a lot of people choose. That's what you said. I really liked. You said there's a choice. Like you are choosing to be a sex worker. Sex trafficking, what you said, that's not a choice. That's and you're forced to be a sex worker. It's very different. That's you're a sex worker technically on the street, but you're forced. You have a pimp. Someone's forcing you to do it. There are people that do it without any force or duress. You know?
Sex workers do a lot of work in protecting women, people with uteruses, and even people with penises. They do a lot of work in protecting life. And I think that I think because it's such a taboo subject here in the United States, sex, even though most of us have it.
It's prostitutes. If you go to Hollywood, there's prostitutes on the street. Like I don't. It's just.
Here.
It is. But if you go to Europe or like I was in South America, it's like I was a prostitute. And like I mean, it's two adults that are consensually paying for. And again, if you go on a date with someone and they pay for dinner and they buy you a gift and you have sex with them, that's technically an exchange anyways. So I don't see what the difference is by valuing someone for the amount of dinner plus their gift for a sexual act. I've never been to a prostitute or been with any, and I've never done a sex work exchange, but I'm also not there to judge other people that want to do that. And that's someone that, and again, if you're not forced to do it, like I have a friend, Trace Lissette, that was in Hustlers. She's a trans stripper that was at Scores when the movie is based off of. She was never forced to be a stripper. She paid her rent, she paid for acting coach, and it got her life together. She's like, I never felt, people are like, oh my God, that's someone's daughter. You're in the bar throwing money at her. She's good. Like, that's like, and I think that if we take away the like stigma of it, like that sex work and sex is so shadow and in the dark, everyone has sex. Everyone masturbates. Everyone wants to, is like has fantasies. Like, it's fun. But what you do is when you make it dark and scary, especially in the US, people are doing it in a dangerous way. They're doing it around drugs. They're doing it in the back alley and in the car. And it kind of, and not to keep going back to this, but it kind of goes back to abortion. Like when you make things, you like make it, criminalize it, and makes people then do it in a dangerous way. It shames them into corners. And I don't think it's healthy in a country that's so focused on like being open and being better. And I think that in this upcoming election, people don't want to talk about it because especially if you're a woman candidate, you go out talking about sex work, they're gonna be like, she's a prostitute. Like in this country, we equate what if someone goes up and defends gay people, all of a sudden, oh, he might be gay. But why can't you be an ally for something that you have nothing to do with? So that's kind of where I stand.
Yes, and I think although it's been kind of shallow for me, they've hit all the Democrats. Have hit their check marks on their platforms. Like, okay, gay marriage is now illegal in the United States. We're having that conversation about women's rights. We're having that conversation about poverty. For me, the one they lack is sex work, which is, I know it's not in everybody's mind, but it affects us indirectly all the time. And then for Republicans, they're a lost case for me. They have to do a lot. Their views on the LGBTQ community, they don't align with mine. The way that they view reproductive rights, they don't align with mine. Even financials, to me, they don't align with mine. That's it. But then again, I'm like borderline, or I am a revolutionist. So it's crazy. I'm like way left. So yeah.
Okay, so then going back to before the break, America's role in the world. Given that there is there's not one set hierarchy, but we, in the international community, we value certain countries above others. And like you're saying, that people revere America and Americans in a certain sense. In the 21st century, what should specifically the American government, what course should we set, and what should America's role be as the superpower that we are, where we are on any sort of tier list? What should we be pursuing, and how do we fit in that puzzle of what is the American puzzle piece?
I think having a hierarchy, I just think it's dangerous because hierarchies, that means you have to have somebody at the top and somebody at the bottom. And when somebody's at the bottom, they're going to suffer a lot. And, you know, I just think as America, this country has to focus, yes, foreign policy, because the world, America is not the only country in this world. We have all the other countries, and what they do are going to affect us because, you know, we live in the same planet, and we're a globalized planet, especially with the internet. I think that the things that we need to do as Americans is, you know, we have to educate people. Like you said, we have to bring back home economics in our education systems. Our students and us, even growing adults, don't know much about taxes unless you go out of your way. And taxes are the number one thing. What's the saying? There's nothing more certain than death and taxes. Why am I not knowing about this? In growing up in my education system. And any country that teaches you about the basic things, I think we should follow that model. I'm not sure. They always talk about Sweden, you know, the Northern European countries love being like socialists and stuff like that because they have universal health care and they have a great education system. You know, I think we could model, whether you want to be a socialist or not, I think it's important that we have great education and that we have, what did I say about that? It was education and healthcare, medicine and home life. You know, I think we should follow any of those countries.
You know, and when you said universal healthcare, like that stood out for me because Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye, like he's an HIV positive, and he lost his insurance or something. Like he has the best insurance, and what he had to pay $3,500 for one pill. And obviously he's someone that's wealthy and can afford that. But long hair, exactly. So he was talking about that on Twitter, and like him and Elizabeth Warren were having a great conversation about that because it was like basically that's unacceptable. That someone that is HIV positive, they need that drug to survive. And $3,500, I can't afford that. If I was HIV positive, then I would be moving towards that.
I don't have
$3,500. That's 3 months of rent for me. I can't afford to put up for one pill. So I think it's really important that when we talk about stuff like universal healthcare, a lot of people are like, well, that everyone's going to take advantage of the resources. If someone needs something help, no one's going to go to the hospital and be like, I have a headache. Give me, like, that's not most people. Most people go to the hospital because they're there, they have to be there. Yeah. Nobody's like, oh, my heart hurts, I get free healthcare. Like, nobody thinks that way. And I think in the US, we're so hung up on this idea of like capitalism and everything has, and I get it, we need to monetize everything, but allow people opportunities to get what they need out of something, you know? And if they need to go to the hospital, like, okay, charge them the pharmacy bill. Then that's something you can have them pay $5-10 from everyone in the US will get you billions. But this idea that we're going to take advantage of people left and right, that's something that, like what you said about hierarchy, is that like people at the top that are rich don't have the same, they're coming from a place of privilege. They don't have the same worries. If they want to go, like I said, they want to go, you know, Planned Parenthood, that's made for people that can't afford it. If you're driving a nice car, you're making $100K a year, you don't care. You're not like, oh my God, I can't afford this. You pay the $3,500. But I think it's so important in the US that moving forward is that we understand that people in the middle and the lower class are really importantly valued because of their offspring. Maybe those parents will never become successful, but you don't know how their children, they're gonna have to scrape their way out. And I have so many friends, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is a great example. She had to claw her way out. She still bartended even up until the point she was in the primary. So there is a level of like, people like that, those are people that need to run for office. People that are angry, I don't want someone that's happy to be there. I don't want someone like Kamala Harris that's like getting her weave done, hair done, looking cute, posting cute Instagram. I don't want someone like, I want someone that's angry. Why are you running for president with a smile? Then you should be doing something else. If you're making millions of dollars a year, you don't need to go out, do your thing. You don't need to be president. President is made for someone that's angry, pissed off, wants to make changes. That's the beauty. And that's moving forward. That's how we can beat the hierarchy, you know?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because people say, well, Donald Trump was angry. You know, Donald Trump.
Well, that's why he got elected. The anger elected him because people in this country are so upset. But anger in the US is seen as weakness. We're so into like football and weakness and you don't show your emotions. And this country is so based on masculinity and we're not into our feminine energy and our feminine side. So when someone comes in and they're angry, people love it. They're like, yes. Or like, look at Elizabeth Warren, a masculine woman. That's fine. Hillary Clinton, a masculine woman. There's a lot of masculinity issues in the US that other countries don't have. Europe, you can hold hands with a man, you can be straight. You can kiss a man, you can be straight. There is a lot of freedom, there's fluidity. Here, there's none of that. You're a man, you have to be masculine. People can't deal with me having nail polish, wearing a dress, wearing a wig. No, you're a man, you have a beard. Like people they can't wrap their minds around that. And that extends to politics. Because the way is people, they're so focused on masculinity, if we can get past some of those issues, we can then start to repair and build and go, listen, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's beautiful, but that's not the point. She's there to be frustrated. And I think that if we can have more people like that, then we're going to start building. And what I said was like, it's a byproduct of Trump. It's a good thing. Sometimes bad things happen and the good will rise to the top, like, you know, cream of the crop will rise. And I think a lot of what we see in the, you know, in the Congress and all that stuff, we see the true diversity. That's where it comes out. And that's where the laws are being made. President, figurehead.
I think
Where are the laws being made? You know?
one thing I love that Barack Obama said at the end of his presidency, or before Donald Trump became inaugurated, is like, I am now taking the role as citizen. And it's like, I think what he was saying is like, you don't have to think about these issues every 4 years. Like we all have the right to like get it if you're passionate about something, like
sure,
like all 4 years, like you can join groups to like it's like there's organizations, and that's why like I involved in the Christian church, and there's organizations doing what you want to do. It's like you don't have to leave it up to the politicians, and I think that's where it's like they're just a figurehead.
They totally are. And if you want to run, like run for your city council, like you said, like or join your church, or involve yourself in other ways. Like I think for me, like I was like, I'm really angry about the way gay people are to each other. So I started hosting panels, queer positive panels, and having people come and have conversations about transphobia, body shaming, like femme shaming, all that stuff. And I wanted to have those conversations, and I created a community like you did. You went into the church and created a community for yourself. And that's not rocket science. I think a lot of people wait for people at the top, and that's what I was talking about macro level. We're always like focused on like, we're going to talk about immigration every 4 years. As children, I'm a child of an immigrant. I talk about immigration every day. I don't have the privilege every 4 years to talk about it, you know? So, sorry, what were you saying?
No, you mentioned
Immigration.
no, you were talking about communities. I think because I kind of put it a little bit on capitalism, because capitalism is individualism, and I think with that kind of ingrained, you forget about communalism. And you, with capitalism, you're just kind of focused on like, I have to get to the top, to the top, to the top, to the top, to the top. You kind of forget your surroundings. And I think what's most important is to be with people and to be in harmony with people. Like you said, you created, you didn't like the way that your community, our community is being treated, because there is transphobia, even not only with cis heterosexual.
Gay men are doing it to trans people.
Exactly. It's even within cis cis homosexual. No, yeah, cis
gay men.
Cis gay men are transphobic to people.
Or racist. They will not sleep with a black man. They will not sleep with an Asian man. I mean, and that's stuff they talk about.
Intersectionality.
Richard Pryor talked about that.
Well, I mean, as a person of color in comedy, yeah, of course.
Yeah, Dave Chappelle also, you know, I don't remember Richard Pryor's acting,
Well,
community or?
no, I mean, well,
They're attacking you.
There's a bias, a kind of racist element within prominent gay community in California. But he was willing to address that, as Philip wasn't homosexual, but he had experiences and stuff where he felt he could address that topic, and it's one of the controversial. Not to interrupt you, but I just get to that point where it started at in the world, U.S. in the world. I was just thinking of some of what Amir said and some of what we talked about. I think the United States, when it's been playing its most positive role in the world, it's been when we're on the underdog side and when we're on the side of working for improvement and standing up for like the better part of what we believe in as Americans, and where we get, I think, dragged down and we end up being an obstacle a lot of times when we're trying to be the establishment, we're trying to like be in control of everything that's going on in the world. And so coming in the future few years, I think